Hello everyone. On behalf of Vivekananda Samiti IIT Kanpur, I welcome you all to the second day of the lecture series on the issue of declassification in the context of Netaji's alleged death. Before we proceed on today's talk, let me give you a brief introduction about Vivekananda Samiti. Vivekananda Samiti is one of the oldest clubs under the student gymkhana of IIT Kanpur, functioning over 4 decades, that has been disseminating and actualizing the teachings of Swami Vivekananda, not only among the campus community, but also the world outside the campus. We have conducted several activities which include community service like literary camps and medical camps for the underprivileged, weekly discussions on Swami Vivekananda's life and works, Sanskrit and Vedanta classes, talks and workshops on various subjects by eminent scholars. Last Sunday, we had organized a free medical camp at Ratanpur village with the help of Ramakrishna Mission Ashram Hospital and Shankara Eye Hospital of Kanpur, where we served over 110 patients. Next, we plan to reach out to more people in the nearby villages. In the coming month, we have planned a spiritual retreat at Almora during the mid-semester recess. Following this, on March 13, 14 and 15, there will be a lecture series on Vedanta by renowned monk Swami Sarvapriyanandaji, whose previous 2 lecture series in this institute have already attracted over 1 million viewership through our YouTube channel. I encourage all of you to be a part of this Samiti. We are soon going to invite nominations for the coordinators and secretaries for the year 2015 and 16. For any queries, feel free to contact us. These are our contact informations. Now coming to today's talk, we are privileged to have Mr. Anuj Dhar, who is the author of the bestseller, India's Biggest Cover-Up. So may I now request Mr. Anuj Dhar to please continue with the second talk.
Thank you very much. I am rather delighted to be here in the IIT. Yesterday 200 people turned up. Today I am told you have other functions also. Thank you, very so kind. Well, that speaks volumes about it's a testimony to the importance of Subhash Chandra Bose into our country. Even after so many decades, forget about years. I mean, for decades, this man has been totally out of the picture. And despite that, in this age and time, people like you, smart people like you, can spare this much of time after. I mean, yesterday I took 2 hours. At night, people were talking to me until 1 o'clock, probably 1 o'clock. So this is the magic of Subhash Chandra Bose. And we are told that this is nothing but a conspiracy theory. Subhash Chandra Bose's death is nothing but a conspiracy theory. I think that's insult to the people of India. If it were a mere conspiracy theory, why would people be so interested even in this age and time? And so that's how it is. Yesterday I had a session, and in that session, am I audible or not? No? Somebody has to do something with it. So yesterday I had a session here, and it was focused only about the need for the declassification of files regarding Subhash Chandra Bose. So I ran, those present yesterday through data about files held in the different government departments, and of course, including the PM's office and so on and so forth, and the need for declassification. The basic idea yesterday was that, in America we had a problem regarding John F. Kennedy's death, assassination. So there were a lot of conspiracy theories about him. People said, no, he was knocked down by the mob. Somebody said, no, the Russians are involved. Then there was a very dominant theory that the American CIA, had a hand in the whole thing. So nobody believed in people, relegated the whole thing to a conspiracy theory domain for many, many years. A man called Jim Garrison, attorney, he tried to do something to find out the truth about it. He eventually, you can say, failed. But then he wrote a book which didn't work, and in 1991, Oliver Stone made a movie out of it called JFK. So movie had basic one theme, that there is a controversy regarding Kennedy's death, assassination. A lot of people feel the reasons that probably CIA had a hand in the Kennedy's death. And on the other hand, the government in America is holding a lot of data classified about the assassination. So that led to an uproar in America in those days. and the American Congress was forced to enact the JFK Records Act, whereby every document concerning Kennedy's death is to be declassified and put in public domain. So essentially that is what we are trying to do in India, that we must follow the American pattern, because that's very logical, that you must, for all said and done, no matter what people say, but in the name of God, at least all these files, these thousands of papers lying in different government archives in India, the secret ones, they must be declassified. Now today's talk is a rather lengthy one. It's about the what actually happened to him. What is my take on that? So as I said yesterday, there have been many stories about what happened to Subhash Chandra Bose, but luckily in last 10 years, things have become rather clear. Well, in respect that now we can boil down all the things to just three options. So whatever probably was alleged 20 years back, today's probably there's a proof supporting that allegation. So anyhow, so there are many theories, but then today the whole story about what happened to Subhash Bose, you can actually boil it down to just three options. There is no fourth option on the table today. So you have to choose one of these three options. So these three options are: first option is the official plane crash theory, that in August 1945, that is sometime after Japan, who was Subhash's benefactor in Second World War, there was a plane crash in now what is known as Taiwan, Taipei city, and Subhash Chandra Bose died in that plane crash. So this is the first story, official theory about Subhash Chandra Bose's death. So a lot of people, including some people in the INA, Lakshmi Saigal here, of course she used to live here, she believed in this thing and so on and so forth. So the second theory which gained prominence recently thanks to Dr. Subramanian Swamy, which is rather well known, and at least in Delhi circle, even among the high officials, I've heard even ministers, former minister talking about it. Subhash did not die in any plane crash. He was actually in Soviet Russia, and that he was killed there at the behest of Pandit Nehru, God forbid it should be true, by Joseph Stalin. Now, mind you, every slide that I'm going to show you is from a proper source. This is not tabloid stuff. This is Hindustan Times. And I have worked there. It was a Congress paper. It has nothing to do with the BJP or RSS or Congress, any other thing. So these are standard newspapers, and I'm showing you standard or documents, data from the archives or other sources, which are reliable. So this is the story number two. The first theory, either he died in Taiwan. Second theory was, of course, he probably was in Russia, where according to Dr. Swamy, he was killed there. Theory number three, hard to believe, absolutely mind-boggling, doesn't make any sense on the face of it, that he was actually a holy man living in UP of all the places. And he was here till 85. 85, Netaji would have been 88. A lot of people assume Subhash Chandra Bose and Gandhiji were same age. I'm sorry, they were not. Subhash was, Gandhiji was elder to Subhash's father in age. I think Sardar Patel was 20 plus years elder to him. Panditji was 9 years senior to him in age. Subhash Chandra Bose was much more younger than these people. He was very famous, he was very energetic. That is one reason people did not like him. So the third theory, that Subhash Chandra Bose was actually in India, and he was a holy man by the name of Bhagwanji. Gumnami Baba, many people call him, but the name was Bhagwanji, and he was here in India, and he died in Faizabad in 1985, when he would have been 88. So these are the three theories. There is no fourth story. I can bet my life on that. No fourth story. There have been some silly stories like the Americans, got him and they killed him. I'm sorry. No proof, nothing whatsoever. There's nothing on record to even remotely suggest the Americans had a hand in it. Everything is, you have to choose one of these three options, no fourth option. So I'll take you through all these three options, and I'll tell you what exactly is right or wrong with these options. Plane crash theory is based upon an announcement made by the Japanese, and which was published in all the newspapers in those days, including in India, and of course all over the world. For some reason, the news was relayed 5 days after the plane crash. 18th of August, they said there was a plane crash, but the news came out on 23rd or 24th. It was published in India basically on 25th. This is the Hindustan Times clipping on 25th of August 1945. The theory was that Subhash Chandra Bose, he was in Singapore on 16th, 17th, he arrives in Saigon, which is now known as Ho Chi Minh City. And that evening he left that place, and the next day he flew towards Japan. And he was actually to have gone to Japan, and he was to discuss the modalities of surrender, because Japan had been nuked there, as you recall, on 6th and 9th of August. On 15th of August, Japan announced it was going to surrender to the Allied forces. And that's how this theory was that Netaji was actually going to Japan. He was to discuss the modalities of INA surrender there, and then he was to have come back to Singapore, which was the headquarters of this government in those days. But en route, there was a plane crash in Taiwan, in Matsuyama Aerodrome. Now this is Taipei Songshan Airport, which is a domestic airport in the Taipei city. So there was a plane crash there and he died there. This is essentially the nutshell of the plane crash theory. Well, for Netaji, when he was in Singapore, from Singapore, and he arrived in Saigon, it is not in dispute that he arrived in Saigon. 17th of August until evening, I think there's no dispute. 17th August morning when he arrived, this picture was taken. So he flew in his own plane. There was a 12-seater plane given to him by the Japanese government, which had his INA insignia also. You can see the stripes from the line of the INA emblem, whatever. So he arrived. So 17th August, in the morning when he arrived, this picture was taken. So this is not in dispute that he arrived there. And there were a couple of Indians and some Japanese were also with him at that point in time. It's well documented. Well, for some reason he left this plane and he was asked by the Japanese, that you should board another bomber. So this one is not this is a bomber. You don't have place to sit. It's meant for carrying goods. So Netaji and 12, 13, there's some different account, but let's assume a dozen people or so. They boarded this particular flight, this plane, and they were made to sit on the floor, the cushions. So Netaji, had with him some 6-7 people, Indians. But the Japanese told him, no, you cannot take all of them, we don't have space. And there's a plane which is carrying Lieutenant General Sonamasa Shidei to Manchuria. I mean, he can drop you to Tokyo and then he can resume his journey. So there was a haggling and Netaji said, no, I will take my ADC Habibur Rahman with him. So he took Habibur Rahman with him, and so he was the only Indian to accompany him, and the other 6 were left behind. Of these people, the last person to have died was Pritam Singh. Pritam Singh died in Dehradun 3-4 years back. Abid Hassan, who coined the word Jai Hind, he died I think in 1990s. Who else? Yes, almost everyone died much earlier. Only Pritam Singh remained alive until 3-4 years back, and he deposed before this commission and the previous 2 inquiries also. Well, this is the 50s shot of the Matsuyama Aerodrome. Now it's a much bigger airport, of course, but this is how that particular, in the 18th August in the morning, Subhash, 17th August evenings, he leaves Saigon with Habibur Rahman and certain Japanese. In the evening, again, late in the evening, they reach a place called Da Nang, Turin, which is called Turin, now it's called Da Nang these days. And they spend the night there. In the morning, they take off and they arrive around noon. This is Taiwan, Taipei city. And here it's not audible even now. Now it's okay, I believe. Okay, so they arrive at this place around noon, or maybe there's some difference. People, have some confusions are always there. So they arrive this place around 12 o'clock or something, and they say when the plane was again taking off, there was an air crash. There was something went wrong, and then soon after the taking off the plane crash did not kill Subhash Chandra Bose. He was sitting under a petrol tank, gasoline tank, and it bursted actually. And he was, drenched in gasoline, and when the plane crashed, he was more or less right. Habibur Rahman recounted that Netaji was, he had a cut mark, but he was okay. I asked him, please come out, go out from the front side because of the fire on the back side. But there was fire on the front side also. When Netaji tried to come out of the, whatever was left of the plane, he caught fire. So Rahman tried his best to, douse the fire out of his body. He also got burned, in the process. So he stripped him off, removed all the clothes, but by the time he had a 3rd-degree burn. Then he was taken to a local hospital where he died around midnight. There were 2-3 doctors who attended him at that point in time. So this is the official theory. Now there is a confusion and there is a misrepresentation of fact which is made out by a lot of people, which is to the effect that Netaji controversy appeals to only Bengalis, which is not right. I'm not a Bengali, for example. My name sounds very Bengali, but I'm not a Bengali. And they say the entire story about Netaji not dying is the imagination of some Bengalis sitting in Calcutta, people who are having fanciful ideas, wishful thinking, and they were wanting that person to come back alive and so on and so forth. And in fact, they had on their minds some way to go against Pandit Nehru, who was Subhash Chandra Bose's political rival, so to speak. So this is some kind of you probably when you talk to people will tell you this thing even today. ये तो बंगालियों ने पागल हो गए ऐसी बेकार की बातें करते हैं ऐसे कुछ इस तरह का लूज कमेंट्स लोग देते हैं बहुत सारे मुझे भी लोगों ने बहुत दिया. That's why I have to repeat the same thing. So but problem ये है उसमें unfortunately the story did not start with Indians at all. Indians in 1945 were too simple-minded even to comprehend these kind of things. I was talking to somebody regarding Lakshmi Sehgal in those days. Please take a look at the movies of 1945. Even in those days, film actresses would not dare to look straight onto the camera. And in those days, this man made women fight in battlefield. This is the charisma of that man. So these were different times. Well, people could not even imagine that somebody can actually, a fake news can be planted. It was beyond the comprehension of people in those days. People were too simple-minded in the times of in 1940s. This was not today's India. In fact, in 10 years, things have changed so much, dramatically. So the people who suspected that this man did not die, the story was fake, were the Americans and the British, for a start. It didn't start with Calcutta. This man was the ruler of India, and he was a field marshal, apart from that. Akibal Weber, he was when he heard about the plane crash news, and he said, he wrote in his diary, which was declassified in 1970s, it is just what should be given out if Bose meant to go underground. He said, I don't believe him, this is a lie, because he died exactly the same time when he would have been captured by the British. So just as they were close to get him, close to him, he dies. So there's something wrong. This man has escaped. This is not the way of, this is something fishy about the whole thing. The first man who claimed that he saw Subhash Chandra Bose alive after his death was an American journalist, Alfred Walk, working for Chicago Tribune. No Indian. Indians come in the picture late. These Americans and the British. So Alfred Walk interrupted a press conference of Nehru on 30th August 1945 to say, look, I have seen this man. This is a press clipping from those days. And this is also part of the reports in intelligence subsequently, that Alfred Walk complained, look, I have seen this man in Saigon after 3-4 days after the plane crash. What are you talking about? In those days, the people who were war correspondents were actually people from the military intelligence also. They used to, be given the cover of, journalists and so on and so forth. The first Indian person, the first Indian leader, or you can say the whole thing caught the imagination of the people in our country was when Gandhiji himself came out saying that Subhash did not die. He made statements which were published in media, both in India and as well in America. Forget about England and other places. So this was published, even if today you go and search in Google News, you will find New York Times writing in on the same day that January 2, 1946, Gandhi believes that Subhash is alive. So this you can even locate. But this is the Hindustan Times clipping for that particular point. So it was Gandhiji who said, both publicly and privately, he said many things. He said, no, he's very sourceful. I don't believe. The reason for all these people to, say all this thing was that, the entire story of the plane crash was based on hearsay. People said that Netaji had died. There was no proof, no dead body, no picture of dead body, and Japanese had systematically, even Germans, they had destroyed the records. In Singapore, in Saigon, everywhere they have destroyed the records. So there was something fishy because you don't, how do you believe you don't have the body, you don't have a picture of the body, and they claim that you have, cremated his, and the ashes have been taken to Japan. Well, that doesn't prove that this is, it can be anybody's ashes. So they didn't believe. So since the British and Americans, the British especially did not believe in it, so they ordered for an inquiry. And it was carried out essentially by the intelligence bureau people, but there were people from the military and there were other units also. The military and intelligence people conducted an inquiry because the Viceroy wanted the inquiry to be done. Now, the first thing which they did is to ask the Japanese about it. Look, tell us what happened. Now, this is, for example, a note from a dossier given by the Japanese government to the government in those days. Well, it is actually an itinerary. There's no detail. What they are saying in this report, that an outline of the result of the investigation is as follows. Movements of Mr. Bose, August 17, 8 a.m. left Saigon, 11 a.m. arrived at Saigon. I'm sorry, this is an itinerary. This doesn't prove anything. You are just giving as if it's a marriage card is there. No. So they don't believe. He said, no, we'll do our own inquiry. So what they did was they caught hold of people who were last seen with Subhash Bose. And they did, they did the interrogation on them. Now this is, for example, a declassified report from the National Archive, declassified in 1997 in India, New Delhi. Now the theory which I'm telling you, that the theory given out by the Japanese government was that he was going to Tokyo and he was to discuss the INA surrender, then he was to have come back. But then when you interrogate the people, you have problems area. For example, they say that Subhash Chandra Bose, I think if I'm not wrong, one place they said he was carrying woolen clothes. Why would you be taking woolen clothes with you unless you're going to a very, area which is very cold? Second thing, people said at certain places he cried also. The body language was as if he's going never to come back. In fact, later on, as it came out, his confidential secretary Bhaskar Menon, he said Netaji was absolutely, he did not sleep on that night, one day before he disappeared. On 16th night, he dictated a lot of letters to different people. One of them was sent to John Thivi, he was an INA, and he said, I am going on a long air journey, and who knows, an air crash may not overtake me. He said, I couldn't understand what he was saying then, but I understood later on that the plane crash thing was already planned, pre-planned thing. So likewise, and then he was carrying with him INA treasure. There was a war chest, some 90 kg of gold, jewelry and diamonds, whatnot, which is a story by itself. Now, if you are going to Japan just to talk of the INA surrender and come back, why you are carrying the INA jewelry with you? As if you're not going to come back. So there's something wrong. Then, apart from that, they caught hold of this Japanese officer, Mr. Kinji Watanabe, who was present in this meetings, Subhash had just before he disappeared. Now, Kinji and others gave an entirely different version, which is now part of a declassified Intelligence Bureau record. So this is the third paragraph. It says that on or about 17th of August, Watanabe Kinji was called to interpret a talk between General Isoda and Colonel Kagwa on one hand, and Subhash Bose and General Bhosle, who was the Chief of Staff of the INA, Habibur Rahman. And this meeting took place at Isoda's house. Isoda was a Japanese general who was liaisoning between Subhash Bose and the Japanese government. He was the top, you can connect link person between Japan and India, in INA, Subhash Bose's government. Last, you can say they were discussing how to get Mr. Bose to his destination. It was generally understood that he was to get to the Russians, probably to Manchuria. So, which means there are many more documents. I mean, I can show you one after another 100 other documents. He was not going to Tokyo. He was not a fool. He was actually going to Russia, and Japanese lied. Why do you need to tell a lie when he's going to Russia? Why are you hiding this fact from the people? Why are you giving a wrong information, putting out a wrong story? So he was going to Russia. That is and this also, kills another conspiracy theory. There's this entire theory about Netaji being in Russia and, being killed by Stalin. It is again cooked up by somebody sitting in Calcutta just to defame Pandit Nehru. I'm sorry, from the day one, the story about Subhash's possibility being in Russia are there. The only problem, it was known to our government, but they hid this file from us. If this document had it been declassified in 1955, Pandit Nehru would have been in big trouble. You having known all this thing and you hid this thing from people of India? This is the Government of India report. You have released it, I think by mistake in 1997. Now this is, I mentioned that Mr. Bhosle was part of that particular meeting. Now this is the interrogation report of Mr. Bhosle. Combined session, Mr. McWright. McWright was the in charge. He was, I think, the Deputy Director of Intelligence Bureau. He was the in charge of the inquiry into Subhash Bose's death. Redford was the hub of the Intelligence Bureau in those days. Today the office have been shifted elsewhere. Now there he is saying that Mr. J.K. Bhosle, 1189, his code name given before the interrogation unit, he confirms that the meeting at Bangkok on or about 17th of August was to discuss how to get Bose to his destination. He also confirms that it was Bose's intention to try to find his way to Russia. So each and every person who was there, available for interrogation, they all eventually broke during interrogation. And to say that Subhash Chandra Bose was going to Russia, he was not going to Tokyo. Only one man stuck to the original story, which was Habibur Rahman. And the version which came out after his interrogation reports and other things, that Rahman was so, fiercely loyal to Subhash Chandra Bose. Everybody agreed that if Netaji had asked him to jump into a well, he would have done so without any, blinking of eye. So this is the interrogation report of Habibur Rahman. It's plain English. You don't have to, this is again declassified in 1997. It is considered that even if B1269, Habibur Rahman, the only witness to Subhash Bose's death, there were 5-6 witnesses. All were Japanese, only one Indian was there. Mr. Rahman was there. And it's about him. This is what the crux of the interrogation report. It is considered that even if B1269, which is Rahman's code name, was in the know of Bose's plan, he would not disclose them. His manner is not very convincing. He talks in a secretive way even if no one is about. There are other reports that this man is not telling the truth and he is just obeying the orders. That's the impression which came out. This is a picture of Mr. Rahman. Rahman eventually went to Pakistan and he died the additional defense secretary of Pakistan. That's another story. This is one of his later day pictures. Now, Colonel Ahmad was the Netaji's military secretary. This is actually an excerpt from something which was stated in 1970s before a commission of inquiry. So people were asked again and again, what was the character of Mr. Rahman like? If he was asked by some Netaji to say something, was he of such type that he would keep his mouth shut all his life? The answer was yes. He said he was very hardcore Subhash Chandra Bose follower. He would have not divulged anything. So this is the story which comes out, that Rahman, somebody, the only proof of Netaji's death is Rahman's statement. And Rahman's statement is open to a big question mark. There are many contradictions. He says something today, something else tomorrow. And one thing which I know, of course, that in private off-the-record talks, I have known at least one person, because he died recently. Rahman actually told them, look, I am only obeying the orders. In fact, there's a story that Mahatma Gandhi met him, and after meeting him, he made an announcement, look, I was of the view that Netaji was possibly alive, but after meeting Rahman, I am sure that he has died. But same Mahatma Gandhi, some other place, he said, Rahman has given me a soldier's statement. And in fact, there's something on record to suggest that Gandhi knew that he was in Russia. So Rahman was cooking up a story because he was ordered by Subhash Bose. This is the crux of the whole issue. After, if you go through the other data, the other evidence on record, this would come out. I'm just showing you some few pieces, otherwise it will get into too many details. Now the first inquiry actually, so to speak, because Taiwan was occupied first by the American forces. British occupied only up to Singapore. So Japan and as you know, all these places were occupied by the American forces. So the first inquiry into Subhash Bose's death was carried out by the American forces, American army. So the British intelligence in around a month of June, almost 11 months after Subhash's death, they asked the British intelligence, asked the American government through the consulate in Bombay, you must have done some inquiry and you must have found out about what happened to this man. So this is the answer which came from the American side. This is from the National Archive of America, which is called NARA, Maryland. And again, 97 many documents came out all over the world. So this is also, I think, declassified in 1997. So there it says that a search of the files in the intelligence division reveals that there is no direct evidence that Subhash Chandra Bose was killed in a plane crash in Taiwan, Formosa. Formosa is the old name of the Taiwan, despite the public statement of the Japanese to that effect. That means the Japanese are saying that he has died. But there is no direct evidence. I told you, there is no body, there is no picture of the dead body. How do you prove that he has died? So this is the American assessment, which is more or less correct. Now the problem, why should we not believe, you have 5-6 people, Japanese, and even you can count even Habibur Rahman. Why should we not believe them? See, the problem, just because somebody is saying, you won't believe. So you will put them, through, will put question and answer. There are certain things, you can forget after some time. For example, if you are actually caught up in a plane crash, you will definitely forget some of the small things. But some of the major things, it will be always forever etched in memory. It will always be part of your memory. For example, I personally saw a dead body for the first time in my life when I was a kid. So many 30 plus years have passed by. And I can pinpoint, I can tell you where exactly in South Delhi, which was the road, it was a truck, the victim was a cleaner, right side. I will never make those mistakes. I clearly remember on 9/11, I was in my uncle's house, Mamaji's place. I turned the TV on and this plane, there's something wrong, every channel is showing there's something wrong in America. Suddenly a plane comes and hits the other building also. I can tell you I was there in my Mamaji's house. I will never forget, I will never misplace you, these things you will never forget. But the problem with these people, there are 5-6 people who are mature, they are military officers, and subsequently they've joined private sector and they're all well-off people. When they were asked to recall what happened in those days, they were making statements, they were totally contradicting each other. 4 people claim that they were witness to a ghastly event, that a VIP was burnt alive in front of their eyes, short distance. And when they're asked to recall the event, they are giving totally contradicting view. One person says, no, Habibur Rahman tried to save his life. The other person said, no, I tried to save his life. Third person say, no, me and my 30 people came from the airport in a car and then we tried to save the life of the people. So that means something wrong. So, for example, this is the testimony on record. This is an official record, Government of India. Testimony given by, Mr. Takahashi, who was also in that plane. Now, here he's saying that Subhash Chandra Bose followed my advice. I caught hold of his legs. I asked him to roll on the ground. No, Rahman is saying something else. Nakamura is saying something else. It is not possible. I mean, this man was I believe, a general manager of a company in those days. When he said this thing in 71, he obviously is not an old fogey. You don't become an old fogey at the age of 50, especially not Japanese. So there's something wrong. So that means they are telling a cooked up story. Because you're saying, you're giving a statement before a commission, you're saying, question is asked, did you see the plane wreck when you arrived at the airport? The answer is, yes, I saw it. After 15 minutes, he said, no, I don't remember. Something wrong. You are. So there were many such contradictions and they piled up. So that is why the intelligence, that is why nobody believed in this plane crash theory. Now, this, for example, from the Japanese government dossier, this is a classified record, a part of the Japanese dossier given to the government of India in 50s and subsequently also. Now, they have shown there's a sketch of the airfield where the plane crash happened, and what they're saying is the plane went up some 20 meters above the ground and it crashed. And wreckage was lying very close to the runway. And this is what they are trying to show. This is what most people say. See, I can understand. There are people, one person says that the plane went up 200 feet in the air and then it crash landed. Something went wrong. Other person says, no, it was around 400. Okay, this is fine. 200, 400 doesn't make too much of a difference. This much of mistake you can make. But three people saying that the plane went 200 feet in the air and Mr. Rahman says it went 12,000 feet in the air. I'm sorry, that is too much of a difference. 12,000 feet, then from 12,000 feet you fall to the ground and 6 people die, 6 people survive. All those who are heading to Russia, they die. All those who are heading to Japan, they all survive. I think there's something wrong. So these are things pile up. For example, so this is the Japanese government, they show that this wreckage was lying there. This is the official record. Nobody can contradict these things. These are the pictures which were located, given by the Japanese government. They showed the wreck of the plane after the plane crashed. So this is, the quality, I'm sorry, is very poor, but it shows that the wreckage is lying near close to the hill, some hilly area the wreckage is lying. And there's something funny I was telling yesterday. Any piece of evidence which somehow contradicts the official plane crash theory, it goes missing in government archives. That record goes missing. So these pictures have gone missing because now these pictures can demolish the plane crash story today. So the moment it comes to light, it can happen. These pictures have vanished from the government of India, archives. They have not vanished. They have, made, they are not disclosing them now. Now this is the topography of that area even today. The problem that what Japanese are claiming that the wreck was lying here, somewhere here, and the pictures which they have supplied, they are showing wreck to be lying somewhere there. So what they did was to give, when planting a news, what they have done is to give a picture of some other plane crash. But problem in the background, you have this hilly area. So that gave away. So this is one of the many, there are at least hundreds of such things which pile up one after another, just to demonstrate. So the hills are very far away from this is not close to the runway at all. So this is the Taipei Songshan domestic airport. Now, this is the last report compiled by the British intelligence, which include Indians also. And this is the summary of what they knew a couple of months after his death. It's, like I said yesterday, it is plain English. Doesn't have to know rocket science to understand all these things. This is here what they're summarizing the whole thing. Paragraph number 2. It seems clear that Bose and his staff were trying to make a getaway to Russia. There's nothing more to understand in it. Habibur Rahman, Pritam Singh, Gulzara Singh and Hassan have all been examined and appear to have lied or withheld their knowledge. Again, plain English. In between, this is a 3-page report. In between, they are talking about Nehru and Gandhi, and so we leave that part. In the last paragraph, they are talking about information coming from Russian side. See, there's a thing both in research as well as intelligence. If 3 independent sources confirm one particular thing, that becomes as good as gospel. So this is what they're saying, there are information coming from the Russian side, from the Indian side, And from other side, they're all converging in one area, that this man is in Russia. So there, in the last page, they are quoting the Russian sources. This is from National Archive, declassified document 1997. The governor of the Afghanistan province of Khost had been informed by the Russian ambassador in Kabul that there were many Congress refugees in Moscow and Bose was included in their number. There is little reason for such persons to bring Bose into fabricated stories. Obviously, why would an ambassador cook up these kind of stories? He's not a media person. They don't talk, they don't get into loose talks like this. So this is, so they say that there are people, even Russians are saying that he's in Russia. So the idea that the entire story of Subhash Bose being in Russia, this is as old as the plane crash story. Well, there have been 3 inquiries into Netaji's death. The official narrative, which is sometimes repeated in the media also, that government of India has carried out many inquiries into the death, but the conclusions are very confusing, so on and so forth. First of all, government of India did not inquire. They were forced to inquire. From the day one, they did not want to inquire about the case, especially after 1946, when for no good reasons, apparently, Mr. Nehru made a statement that Subhash Bose actually died in a plane crash. Thereafter, it has become a gospel for the entire country. No, we will stick to that line. Come what may, what Panditji said is gospel. So they were, when they faced public pressure, in 1956, they were, in fact, late 55, when questions were raised in Parliament, Panditji refused. He said, there is no need for an inquiry. He kept on saying, people asked him again and again. Mr. H.V. Kamath was the first man who raised the issue from the start. He was from Maharashtra. So he said, Panditji would refuse. He said, no, there is no need for inquiry. We have already inquired. No, he has died, so on and so forth. So eventually in 56, people said, okay, you don't do an inquiry. We will set up a public funded inquiry by civil society. And it would be headed by Justice Radha Binod Pal. Radha Binod Pal, a very well-known, very highly former Calcutta High Court judge, respected by the Japanese. So the moment they heard Radha Binod Pal's name, something went wrong in New Delhi. And suddenly government of India said, we will have a committee and Mr. Shahnawaz Khan, former INA member, will be the head of it. Now the story given out to us, Mr. Shahnawaz Khan was a part of INA and he led the inquiry and it proved that Subhash Bose had died in a plane crash in Taiwan. But what they don't tell you that Shahnawaz Khan, sir, was 2 years he was in the INA. For the rest of his life, he was in Congress party. So he spent I think died in 1983-84. He adopted a girl whose son is Shah Rukh Khan, the film actor. And so this is how the inquiry was not done by Mr. Shahnawaz Khan. It said, this man has died in a plane crash. This was the official version, 55. Again in 1960s, there was a ripple, and there were some stories about holy man. There was some controversy regarding Netaji being a war criminal, and questions were raised in Parliament. There were 3 people who raised a lot of noise about it. First one was, of course, Mr. Samar Guha, member of Parliament. The day one in his Parliament speech, he became very emotional. He would refer to Netaji in present tense all the time. And he said, no, have an inquiry. You don't have his picture in Parliament. And he was very successful. In fact, we did not have Subhash's portrait in Parliament also. It was because of Samar Guha in 1975 or 78, the Janata Party government installed the picture. We did not have any roads named after him in Delhi. And we did not, I think there was no statue also properly in Delhi. The one in front of Lal Killa today probably was put up there in 1970s. And so long Panditji's his family rule, they did not allow these things to come up. All the while, all and sundry, they had their pictures in Parliament House. And many of them were, I don't think so, they were great shots. They were no big freedom fighters, not all of them. So Samar Guha played a big role, and he was helped to a large, great extent by Mr. Atal Bihari Vajpayee. Now, then of course he became the future Prime Minister. And Mr. Omi Anath Bose, he was Subhash Chandra Bose's nephew, member of Parliament. So he had backing from a lot of people. In fact, there was a time Mr. Samar Guha actually got a memorandum done. He said, I want to have an inquiry on Netaji's death, and he asked the Parliament members to sign it. So there were 350 signs. Even people from the Congress party signed it. And the then President, Mr. V.V. Giri, was probably a friend of Netaji. So that applied pressure on Mrs. Indira Gandhi in 1969. Then 1968, I think there was some claim regarding Mahatma Gandhi's death. And the government of India suddenly set up a Jeevan Lal Kapoor commission into the conspiracy of the Mahatma Gandhi's death. So they said, if you have an inquiry about Mahatma Gandhi's death in 68, why can't you inquire Subhash Bose's case also? So all this thing led to the formation of the, first was an inquiry committee, which means it was not a judicial body. In committee does not have too much of power. Committee is basically a part of the government setup only. But the second one was a commission headed by a former High Court Judge, Mr. G.D. Khosla. People in those days probably could not see, they could not make out that Mr. G.D. Khosla's credentials were very doubtful. For one, he was Nehru's friend. Number two, he was very close to Mrs. Indira Gandhi. Three, that he had a very bad reputation. Anyhow, but he also gave a report in 74 which said that Subhash Bose died in a plane crash in Taiwan, so on and so forth. Then eventually, by 1999, some people filed a case in High Court in Calcutta. And Prabha Shankar Mishra was the Chief Justice of Calcutta High Court, and he asked the government of those times, United Front government, I think it was Devi Gowda, the Prime Minister, okay, what is your stand on Subhash Bose's death? So the government of India itself said in court, our stand is that there is some dispute, there is some doubt about his death in plane crash. So he said, if this is the doubt, you accept that, then you have an inquiry. If you yourself have all these doubts, why don't you clarify things? So there was a third commission set up in 1999, which was headed by this man, Justice Manoj Kumar Mukherjee, former Supreme Court judge. Now this report gave the finding that Subhash Bose did not die, there was no plane crash, and he was planning to go to Russia. And I cannot tell you whether or not he landed in Russia or not, because I was not given access to the intelligence files in Russia when I went there. But he overturned the findings of the previous two committee and commission. But our misfortune was that by the time this inquiry report came out, Dr. Manmohan Singh government had come. And they made a mockery of the all democratic norms without assigning any reason. In parliament, they rejected this report. No reason was given. It was a mockery, it's a joke of democracy. Had it been some other ordinary case of Bhamri Devi or something else, this country would have had a revolution. People would have run out in the street demanding justice. But nobody spoke. Maybe a few people in member of parliament raised concern that this is not the way. You cannot reject a report. Today I'm hearing there's a problem, ordinance, and people are saying, government should discuss in parliament. Where were these people when they rejected this report without giving any reason? That is also part of democracy. You should discuss, such a big man, such a person who has played big role. Even Congress today say that he was a leading freedom fighter. So why don't you at least, and his death is such a point issue. You have, India has so much concern for Jessica Lal, so much concern for Rizu Rahman. There was a case in Calcutta, some boy died, there was some failed love affair. And within, 1 week, there was an entire Bengal state was on the street demanding justice for him. So why not same emotion for Subhash Bose? I mean, he is also entitled to justice. He has his family, you talk to his people, his relative, his nephew, nieces, they start crying. For you and me, he may be a historical figure. For them, he's an uncle and aunt. There are still, at least I remember, of course, the other day, I was talking to Netaji's niece. She remembers him talking, like that. They're old people. They said, I don't know what happened to uncle. And I think 98% of Netaji's family members don't believe in they all think he was in Russia. So this is essentially what Justice Mukherjee's logic was. He said the entire story of Subhash's death was based on indirect evidence. And when you look into the other part, there were a lot of contradiction. And so he found out that his conclusion was based on this particular premise: men may lie, but circumstances do not. And his conclusion in his report, which was made public in 2006, was the entire make-believe story of the A crash, Netaji's death, and therein and his commission was engineered by the Japanese army authorities. It is not real. I mean, of course, they have used somebody else's body. You created fake papers, and you have, and this man escaped towards Russia. This is what he said.
Why was it released in 2006?
It was, see, the problem, there was, to go back into it, Justice Manoj Kumar Mukherjee had a meeting when he was not held by the government of India. So he often made complaints. The government is not helping me. The government is not giving me papers. So he had a couple of meetings with the Home Minister, because this was set up under the Home Ministry. Home Ministry is the nodal agency in this case. So he met Mr. Advani. For Advani, at least he had the basic courtesy that he would talk to him with respect. He may or may not give him papers, but he would talk to him with respect. When Mr. Shivraj Patil took over as the Home Minister, Justice Manoj Kumar Mukherjee went and saw him. This man did not even have he insulted him. He did not even offer him to sit. He gave him a lecture. No, you are wasting public time by wasting so much of money. It has been 3 years you've been inquiring, you're going to different countries, so on and so forth. Manoj Kumar Mukherjee came back. He told his own staff, and because we were journalists following, so we came to know. He said, I'm not going to see this man's face again in my life. So when the report came out, the routine is that the commission inquiry chairman himself goes and submits the report. So Mr. Mukherjee feigned he's unwell. He's very much well. He's very much fit right now. He said, I'm unwell, and he asked one of his juniors to go and submit the report. So in 2005, the report was given September. The government under the law is supposed to place it on the table of parliament within 6 months. So they wanted to table in the parliament on the last day of the parliament session so that media doesn't come to know of it. So they delayed it, and they have excuses. If something is not in the media limelight, nobody cares. There are so many cases lingering in courts, nobody is bothered. Till such time there's a spotlight in media. So they were delaying. And deliberately they placed it in parliament at a time when there will be no debate. So something like, so they had some ulterior motive, the government in those days. Now, during the course of this particular inquiry, one thing came out, and I played, of course, a role in that. Very simple, straight thing. If there's a the crime takes place, for example, in Kanpur, you cannot have an inquiry in Allahabad. You'll have to go on the spot, you have to do inquiry, on the spot inquiry. Now, for some reason, the government of India, right from 1947, have an allergy towards Taiwan. They don't want to go there and make a search. Shah Nawaz wanted to go there, but he was dissuaded by the then government. Mr. G.D. Khosla also was not allowed. Then Mr. Samar Guha and Mr. Atal Bihari Vajpayee literally forced the Indira government to let him visit there. But when he reached there, he refused to talk to that government. Why would you be going to Taiwan? You have to talk to the government authorities. If something happened here 50 years ago, I will get nothing by way of evidence. Only evidence will come from the local authorities, the police station, the air staff, so on and so forth. But Mr. Khosla was not interested in that thing. So it was only one person, Mr. Mukherjee was the only person who went to Taiwan. In fact, that's the irony. By the time he took over, Mr. Vajpayee was the Prime Minister, and Mr. Vajpayee did the same thing which Indira Gandhi had done. They would not allow him to go to Taiwan. Same problem, no, we don't have diplomatic relations and all so forth. I have reason now. You have intelligence relations with Taiwan. You spy on Chinese using the Taiwanese. You have business relations with them. Then there's no problem. You have a Taiwanese bank in Delhi, there's no problem. But over a small issue of Netaji's death, you create so much of excuses, That's not done. So then what I did was in 2003, I contacted some people, and eventually, as a result of those, off-the-record discussions, I wrote to the Taiwan government. I asked them that the same question on behalf of the Indians, tell me whether or not there was a plane crash or not. So they told me there was no plane crash, and we have checked the records. So that data I transferred to the Mukherjee Commission, which is our part of record, and Commission then got into direct connection with the Taiwan government, and it helped them a great lot because when they visited Taiwan, so the Ministry of External Affairs in that country, provided some data to Commission, and this thing came out that according to the government of Taiwan, from whatever data they have with them, they have rejected the plane crash. He said there was no plane crash at that point in time. So this was the, like driving a nail into the coffin of the plane crash theory. The theory that you have Subhash Chandra Bose's ashes in Japan, this was also settled by the Commission. There's one point, I also thought about it. Some people, say that we are having so much of controversy about Netaji's death. Why don't we have a DNA test of his ashes? And when they make this, they put this question, they think people like me are idiots, as if we are not aware of DNA testing. See, the problem with the DNA testing has been demanded for the past 20 years. But for some reason, our government is not interested. So the blame for not having a DNA test lies squarely with the government of India. We have been demanding, me and others who have been talking about seeking justice for Subhash Chandra Bose. We have been demanding from day one there has to be a DNA test. My rider person, which I'll explain later on, it has to be done in a lab outside this country, not in this country. I do not want any Indian person to touch because I don't trust. I am absolutely patriotic. I once wanted to join the army. When it comes to Subhash Chandra Bose, the credibility of my government is zilch. Zero credibility regarding to Subhash Chandra Bose. Do not trust. I will trust Pakistani, I will not trust government of India on Netaji. On other issues, I'm okay with it. On Kashmir issue, on United Nations, on Iraq crisis, everything, I'm with the government of India. But on Netaji, they have such poor track record from day one. There's a huge percentage of this country which has not forgotten Subhash, they have not forgiven him that he took on Mahatma Gandhi in 1942. That is the root cause of it. I was explaining to one foreigner. I said, no, this has nothing to do with Germany. That he went to Germany, they said people don't like him. No, they don't like him because he opposed Mr. Mahatma Gandhi. Because India is a land of ahimsa, is a messenger of peace we are. Subhash Chandra Bose broke away with that line and people don't like him. So the root cause of the problem goes back to those days. Gandhiji said we don't want industry. Subhash said we wanted industry in our country. He said we do not want Purna Swaraj. He said we want Purna Swaraj. He said no armed violence. He said no armed violence. So this is how the whole thing. So people have not forgiven him for that thing. How dare you challenge the authority of the High Command? That was the problem, root cause. So this Manoj Kumar Mukherjee tried his best. He also got the container open. These are photographs from the records. These are the so-called ashes of Subhash Chandra Bose. So you have part of skull, jaw, bones there in Japan, Renkoji Temple. Then he asked a couple of experts in India, Japan, England. I think he asked the gentleman who pioneered the DNA fingerprinting. I'm not getting his name right now, but this is there in my book. Then he asked American expert Terry Milton. All the people said, except for one person, Mr. Kashyap of the CFSL Calcutta, who was making some outlandish claims. But all the other experts, including Mr. Lalji Singh, is a very well-known DNA expert. Everybody said, Japanese, Mr. Lalji Singh, Mr. Milton also said the same thing. See, the body was burned for 8 hours. He said there's chances of having a DNA seems remote too. But Mr. Milton made a very good advice. He said, look, from what I can make out from the pictures, there's a possibility of an anthropological test. You can probably figure out whose skull is it. Is it an Indian or Asian, or how tall was this man? Was he 47 years old? Was he 57? Even from there, you can rule out whether Subhash was or not. And in fact, the entire data demonstrate these are the ashes of Ichiro Ukura, who was a Japanese soldier. These are not Subhash Bose's ashes. They claim to be Subhash, but they're not Subhash's. Anyhow, Terry Milton said, I can try the mitochondrial DNA test, provided you do this anthropological test on first. So Justice Mukherjee requested the government of India that this must be looked into. From that time, the cat took their tongue away. Silence, complete silence from the government of India side. So the blame lies with them, nobody else. The government did not, I think it was BJP government, if I recall it right. Yes, it was BJP. They did nothing about it. One minister was the great Jaswant, the one who wrote a book about Mr. Jaswant Singh. He was engrossed in the thoughts of Muhammad Ali Jinnah, writing books about Jinnah. He was so concerned about Muhammad Ali Jinnah. And when this man was asked question in parliament regarding Netaji's Russian thing, he is giving exactly the same answer which was given by Congress party. Not a word here and there. They are parroting the same answer. But he's thinking about Muhammad Ali Jinnah all the time. What do you do with such people? And they claim to be a nationalist, all these people. We are nationalists. They are pseudo-nationalists. That's a word for them. Before election, they say, Netaji death inquiry karo, uski inquiry karo, Shama Prasad Mukherjee ki death ki inquiry karo, और election power बनने के बाद में पंडित नेहरू जिंदाबाद, महात्मा गांधी जिंदाबाद. This is what they do, BJP wala. I'm sorry. This is the action taken report signed by the Home Minister, Mr. Shivraj Patel. This is all. With one page, they have dismissed the entire report. No reason given. The government has not agreed with the finding. And he's making outlandish comments in parliament when he was asked. He was saying, no, we gave him 6 years, he went to different countries. Is this the way to discuss an issue of national importance? You yourself admit that. Even the Congress government says this is an issue of national importance. This is their language. Is this how you tackle an issue like this? This is the language you use? But this man actually is a follower of Satyam Sai Baba, Mr. Patil. And Mr. Satyam Sai Baba actually, and he's called as Bhagwan by a lot of people, including former Chief Justice of India. He made a statement 1 year after the whole thing, that Netaji never died in any plane crash. So that should also be factored in for people like him, not to me. I don't believe in any God man. The second angle is the Russian angle, where, as I said, Dr. Subramanian Swamy has brought into spotlight, but it's been there from day one. All kind of allegations have been made in past also. Now, the turning point came in 1991, because 1991 Soviet Russia fell apart, and new country came out, which was the Russian Federation, the current Russia. But before that, it was Soviet Russia. So there was one thing which happened in those days. Now, then we figured out that not only Indians, but Russians also had the similar feelings. So some people from India in early 1990s, we went for research from Asiatic Society of Calcutta. Dr. Purbi Roy was one of them. There were 2 more researchers, and they were senior, of course, professors, of course. So they met with people there, and especially those people who were earlier with the intelligence services and then had joined academic studies.
So Dr. Purbi Roy and others, they were told, and they came and they told media that we have been told by people who were earlier part of the KGB, the Russian intelligence, and so, that there are files about Subhash Chandra Bose in Russian archive, secret archives, but they will not be given to you unless until you take some kind of a support from the government of India. See, you want to have an inquiry done, for example, in Rajiv Gandhi assassination. Suppose you have a friend who comes from America and he wants to do an inquiry. So you cannot send him to the IIT Delhi campus for the inquiry because there are no papers about the Rajiv Gandhi assassination in IIT Delhi. They are with either the Home Ministry or Intelligence Bureau or RAW. So, and he cannot go to RAW, there is no such thing as archive RAW open to public. The only chance would be that he will have to go through the channel of his own government. But then, so these are things. You don't get access to the intelligence archive of a different country. But this was the demand made by them. If you look, the Russians are saying so, that we should access their archive. Now, this is part of a document which is again not in public domain. It is from the NGO section of the Ministry of External Affairs, East European Division. I was telling yesterday, NGO is not to be confused with the NGO as we understand. This is not to go out of office. NGO section of the MEA where they keep a lot of classified information. This refers to the old controversy regarding Subhash Chandra Bose. From time to time, various articles have appeared in the Soviet Russian press insinuating, though without actual proof, that Netaji in fact stayed or was incarcerated in Soviet Union after 45. It means that even in Soviet media, people were having the same problem as we are having today. That they were suspecting that this man was here. So the rest of the thing, for example, when they're talking about that without actual proof, they're talking in terms of the Indian Evidence Act. So this is wordplay. But essentially the basic crux of this particular document, this portion is that they were, the doubts, the confusion regarding Subhash Chandra Bose, even the Russians have the same problem. It is not limited to only we Indians. So this is sample of, because after 1991 there were many documents, many articles were written about Subhash Chandra Bose in Russia. They were published in papers and some people made claims in private that we have papers, he was there. So this is a sample of one of the Russian article appeared in 1990s in Soviet Russia. Now in 2006 I asked the Ministry of External Affairs that you give me the copies of correspondence you've had with the Russian and Soviet government regarding Netaji's case. So they admitted that yes, they have it. And they refused to give it to me, saying it will hurt our relation with the foreign state. So the government of India does have correspondence with the Soviet Russian government regarding Netaji's issue, but they do not want to make it public. So this is the right to information answer given in 2006. What do we do? Now, as I figure out, this is again a document, again not in public domain, that in 1996 the issue was discussed in the Ministry of External Affairs. So there's a good summary in one document, and in this document, then Joint Secretary in charge of the East European Division, Mr. R.L. Narayanan, he later on became an ambassador. So Ambassador Narayanan discussed the entire issue, and he made certain points. And these points were A, that in past we've raised the issue of Netaji's with the Russian government. And Russian government has conveyed to us that they have no records about him, number one. Number two, he says that there are essentially two types of archives in Russia. The archives which are open to public and the archives which are secret and classified. He said our understanding is that the Russian answer is coming from the open archives, not from the secret records. Obviously, if Subhash Chandra Bose had escaped to Russia, he was there, you will not find records in the Moscow Museum. It will be with the KGB archives. These are secret operations, intelligence, military operations. You won't find such papers in public domain. So he says that very logical deduction he makes. Point number 6, it would be unrealistic for us to expect the Russian authorities to allow our scholars access to a KGB archive. Very much right. You cannot, scholars don't access to the KGB archive. Out of the question. But what we can do is to request the Russian authorities to conduct a search into these archives and let us know if there is any evidence of Netaji stay in Soviet Union. Therefore, point number 7, it is recommended that we may request our ambassador in Moscow to make a suitable démarche to the Russian authorities on the above lines. When you approach to another government, the first realistic level is a démarche. If démarche doesn't work, your ambassador will go to the other, his ministry, and he will talk personally. If that doesn't work, your foreign minister will make a telephone call. If that doesn't work, he will personally go and talk to the other person, his counterpart in the other country. If that also doesn't work, you have the government-to-government level, that the prime minister of the country will go to America and he will talk to the American president about certain issues. This is different levels. And if you are very serious about something, you will go to the highest level. You will go to the prime minister's level. So this is how you show. But démarche is the lowest level, first serious level where you can raise an issue with a foreign country. Now this document in its entirety, it was seen by, of course, the then Foreign Secretary who has signed here. This is Salman Haider. He was the then Foreign Secretary. Below that, there is the comment by the then External Affairs Minister, and he's writing, FS, Foreign Secretary and Joint Secretary may please discuss urgently. And which was done. And it comes out after this that this is the then Foreign Minister, Netaji's follower. And after this, what happened? I don't know what happened to Mr. Narayanan. He changed his tune entirely. I mean, he was here supporting that we must talk to the Russians about this issue. When he makes his recommendation, the minister says, have a discussion with the Foreign Secretary. During the meeting, God knows what happened, but Mr. Narayanan changed his mind completely. Then he stops talking about this issue. So something goes wrong with Mr. Narayanan. So this man has a lot to answer. And so as a result, Mr. Pranab Mukherjee is an old Nehru Gandhi family loyalist. He just pretends to be a Subhash Bose follower. So the result of it, they did not even issue that basic démarche. Without, this is such a great level of science, how scientific this thing is. Without even asking Russians, you have concluded what Russians know. They did not even issue the démarche. And démarche is such a small thing. This is, for example, an example that from Times of India, Rituparna Ghosh, a third grade actress, she was held up MEA in as far as I know, as a Hindi, she is known for raunchy acts. The third grade is a compliment to her. As far as I, as a Hindi movie buff, this only known for raunchy acts, nothing else. Somebody living in her building in Calcutta, he wanted me to give a presentation in that area. So some high rise in Calcutta. He was also into movie. He wanted to Bhoot aur Bhavishya something. He was part of that thing. So this is an example that she was held up. No, this is the right thing. Everybody is entitled. Every Indian citizen is entitled to respect. Every Indian citizen is entitled to that government should come to the rescue in case in trouble. So when the actor was caught up in Canada at Canada airport, suddenly the MEA has issued a démarche. But you cannot do this simple thing for Subhash Chandra Bose. And this is a government. Today, even in those days, this is the government of people who claim to be Netaji's followers. I have never claimed to be Netaji's follower, admirer, in that sense. So they're claiming कि हम नेताजी का admirer है. वो नरसिम्हा राव कहता है हम नेताजी का admirer हैं. सारे के सारे सब कहते हैं भी नेताजी से admirer. ये क्या admirer है आप कर रहे हैं admiring. आप उनकी मरने का कहाँ मरे वो लोग कह रहे हैं कि रशिया में मार दिया उनको गोली देके मार दिया कुछ करके मार दिया. आप पूछते को राजी नहीं उनके साथ में आप लोग. This is the farce. I'm sorry about this particular aspect. I have to tell you the truth. This is Raoul Wallenberg. What happened to him, his fate is quite similar to the Subhash Bose story, especially when you see it from the eyes of Subramaniam Swamy. Mr. Wallenberg was a Swedish diplomat in Budapest in January 1945, and he was like Schindler's List. Oscar Schindler was, he helped many people escape the Nazi clutches. He also helped a lot of Jews, to escape. So that is why in America, I think there are only two non-Americans who have been made honorary citizens. One is Churchill, second is this man, Mr. Wallenberg. And he's come from a very big business family in Sweden. Anyhow, but that's not it. He was barely 31 years old. He was a second secretary in the Swedish mission in Budapest. So he was helping people, and one day news comes that Mr. Wallenberg and his driver, they went out and they met with an accident and they died. So this is a story how it started. Then somebody said, no, they have not died, they have been kidnapped by the Russians, the Russian Red Army. The moment this story comes out, that there is a issue that probably they have been kidnapped by the Russian, the government and the people of Sweden, a very small country, no special friendship with Russia. The kind of efforts which they have made from their time till that time from today, if you contrast them with our efforts, you will understand the difference between a third world country and a first world country. Third world countries are not deficient only in money. We lack emotions. We only know just to worship those who are in power. That's it. The moment his mother, his step brothers, sisters still fighting, half sisters still fighting for the case. The moment his mother came to know, she went to the Swedish Prime Minister. He said, look, he was your employee. Go and ask. Find about him. And what the Swedish government did was very natural, normal thing. What is the ambassador doing in that country? वहाँ बैठ के ये लोग तमाशा करने के लिए बैठे हैं हमारे एम्बेसडर किसके लिए नौकरी देते हैं लोगों को वहाँ पे उसको पूछा उन्होंने कि जाके गो एंड टॉक टू स्टालिन स्ट्रेट अवे एम्बेसडर उठ के स्टालिन के पास पहुँच गए हमारा आदमी ये बताओ किधर गया सीधा स्टालिन के पास में कोई बीच का वो नहीं एंड दे मेड हाईएस्ट लेवल अप्रोचेस फॉर next 2 years. Every time the Swedish and these people would meet, they will talk about Wallenberg. Wallenberg कहाँ है? खबर लेगी आपके पास. And they had no evidence. All hearsays कि somebody says he was in Siberia, some people saying he was spotted in a mental asylum, so on. All kind of stuff that we get to hear about Netaji. All loose hearsay. But they, I think between 45 to 47, they made 8 or 9 highest level approaches. There was at one point in time, Stalin actually, he was sitting and the minister, the ambassador said, there's a person by this name Wallenberg. He said, what did you say his name was? He said Wallenberg. Stalin took out and he made a note of it, Wallenberg. Okay, I'll look into it. In 1947, the Soviet government gave an answer, the foreign minister, that Wallenberg is unknown to us. We have made all searches in our records, he is unknown to us. But these people would refuse to believe. And in between, again, there were stories. Somebody is coming, some expert some professor is coming from Moscow and he's saying, look, I've heard that in Siberia there's some prison where somebody who looks like Mr. Wallenberg is there, so forth. So then the Sweden government made it a point that every time they had an interaction with the Soviet government, even though Sweden is a very small country, they would put the issue on top of the agenda. First agenda, where is Wallenberg? And after 10 years of saying that Mr. Wallenberg is unknown to us, Soviet government makes an announcement that Mr. Wallenberg was killed. He died during an interrogation at the KGB headquarters in Moscow. And they were saying all along that we have no document. अब Moscow में आपने उसको मार दिया अपने headquarters में. कहते we have no information about him. There are other cases also. Governments, including mine, American, Japanese, they do tell lies. If you want to get the truth out, you have to apply pressure. Why would they tell you so easily? They got the information out. In fact, there's a story of Katyn Forest Massacre. The Russians killed 20,000 Polish. Entire top brass, scientists, military, everybody was killed. 20,000 people were killed. And they blamed the Nazis for it. After 50 years, Gorbachev went on television accepting it was Stalin's idea. For 50 years, they were blaming the Nazis for it. So I have got examples like this, many more. You can make people. My country, the problem, India was, we were an ally of the Soviets. Sweden was not an ally. So Russia was and is our best friend. Everything from Gobar gas plant to atom bomb used to come from Russia. Everything used to get from them. And you could not even ask this question to them. And we were ruled by people, we are told they were, they were statesmen, they were world leaders. Chacha Nehru was known worldwide. In fact, there's a story, there's an account given by an external affairs ministry's officer. He said there was a party in which Panditji was there and the Russian ambassador was also there. And I told him, why don't you take up the issue of Subhash Bose with the ambassador? Panditji responded in Urdu that ye kya chaddu khane ki baatein karte ho? और आज हमको मालूम चल रहा है कि even Mahatma Gandhi suicide was in Russia. Chandu Khana is the people who have opium, drug, these kind of people. So इस तरह का इनका एटीट्यूड था. ये लोगों ने पूछते कभी अरे हाँ पहली बार गवर्नमेंट ऑफ इंडिया ने रशियन गवर्नमेंट से जब बात करी है इस केस में it was in 1991. That means they did not, off the record, unofficially we are told yes, question was raised. But on the record, government says कि we have never asked him. Why haven't you asked? What's holding you back? So this is where this case ends. You haven't asked a Russian about it. There is a data to indicate he could be in Russia. So there is no answer forthcoming. So this is the second theory. Now my problem, for example, Subramaniam Swamy has also been talking about it. My problem, I'm a researcher. I've seen the basis on which he has made these claims. Now, these claims are a little bit hollow. He is not able to understand things, not put them in the context in a way they should be. As far as I understand, I have understood, as a journalist, a former journalist and as a researcher, I think there is sufficient ground to believe that Subhash Bose was in Russia. There's a good reason to at least make this assumption he could be in Russia. But there is nothing absolutely on record to even remotely suggest that he was killed there. It makes no sense. For one, Stalin did not like Nehru at all. He did not like Indian leadership of that day. He did not like Mr. Mahatma Gandhi also. When Gandhiji died, Russia was the only country which did not even send any person to pay respect. After 2 days, they sent somebody. They used to call Gandhi and Nehru reactionaries. Panditji sent his own sister as India's first envoy to Russia, Lakshmi Pandit. Stalin did not meet her. In fact, I'm told that in official papers, Stalin has used abusive words for Nehru. He did not like him. So why would he kill a person who has come to him on his own accord? In fact, documents have come out suggesting that Subhash Chandra Bose sought an asylum from the Russian. He will not go just one day, he cannot take a train and go to Kanpur. There is a letter which has come to light from the KGB archive that Subhash Chandra Bose wrote a letter to the Russian ambassador in Japan. Japan and Russia were not at war with each other. There's a confusion, people think they were at war. No, they went to war only in the end of the war. 45 itself they went to war. August, there was a war. But throughout the war, there was no enmity between Russia and Japanese. So Jacob Malik, who subsequently became the foreign minister, deputy foreign minister of Russia, Soviet Russia. So Subhash Bose wrote a letter to Jacob Malik, and that was traced in the KGB archive by a Russian scholar who deposed before Mukherjee Commission, and the entire transcript of that thing is available. Because letter is not available, but the transcript, he made a note of it. That I am seeking your help, and Lenin used to support these kind of people. I have been not ensuring that I do not attack Soviet Russia in my my approach. And he said, I need your help in making my country free. So a man who has sought asylum from you, he is coming to you on your own accord. Why would you kill that man for somebody who you don't even like to talk about? Makes no sense. So there is no, if indeed what Dr. Swami is saying, Netaji was killed in Russia, there will be plenty of records. There will be a full accounting of this firing squad, how the manner in which he was killed, the belongings would be kept properly. Because Wallenberg's belongings are there. His glasses, his clothes, they were given to his sister in 1990s. Because if he had died in your custody, you will maintain everything. And this was, so if Dr. Swami is saying, there will be proper records. That Russia, the saying goes that, they had file on everybody on this planet. Even our country is like that. In fact, I remember Mr. M.K. Narayan, who was the former NSA, is Takia Kalambas ki, I've got a file on you. He used to tease everybody saying this thing. He was the IB director for 5 years. So even here they maintain files on all and sundry. But in Russia, they say they've got file on everybody on this planet in those days. So there's a problem area. So, but now, forget about, you people, you're all IITians, not this. Even to, it's a, on the face of it, it is completely insulting to the intelligence of anyone to even suggest that Subhash Chandra Bose sitting in Faizabad. Okay, what nonsense is that? But the first time somebody proposed to me this idea that Subhash Chandra Bose could have been here, I felt so disgusted by the very thought of it. I had the, I wanted to throw this man out of the window from the 7th floor of the Hindustan Times in Delhi. What nonsense, what he's talking about? It is out of his mind. Why would he be sitting here, and why would he not come out? Very, very logical thing. So the moment you hear about this thing, it doesn't make any sense. And you have questions which any child can make up. But the problem, with research and whatever be the hypothesis, you cannot put the carriage before the, horse. You have to do things. Now, having looked into the issue, well, I don't know what to say. This of all the angles, this is coming to be closer truth. And I do not know. It would have been in my own interest that I write a book and I say that he was killed in Russia. It would be very me because it squarely blames Congress Party, and BJP would have supported me. It fits very well. But I cannot help it. I have to go by what research says, what the evidence shows me. I cannot go by my own belief, even if they are on those sides. What do I do? Tell me, as you or all people have endowed with scientific temperament. What do I do when the evidence is leading to that direction? First, in 2006, Mukherjee Commission report came out. This man is a former Supreme Court judge. He's not a donkey. He is a former Supreme Court judge. And his brother is a big shot. His brother is a Aslar Mittal, he's behind that group. The other brother is a big shot lawyer. He's not an idiot. He's a former Supreme Court judge. You can understand some Sessions Court judge making a mistake. He was a man tasked by Government of India to inquire into this issue. He has seen more document than anyone has seen. Justice, and people don't understand these basic facts. Manoj Kumar Mukherjee report came out in 2006. He did inquire into the Faizabad issue, and he said that there was no clinching evidence that this Bhagwanji was Subhash Chandra Bose. In those days, media reported that according to Mukherjee Commission report, this Bhagwanji was not Subhash Bose. I'm sorry, the word that he used in those days in his report was no clinching evidence, which is my case even today. Evidence is there, it is not clinching. There is evidence, but it is not clinching. Because if it is clinching, then we will say this is him. In 2010, you can search, you can find it on YouTube also, it's times now, but anyhow, but in 2010, Manoj Kumar Mukherjee was caught on camera. He was having an off the record talk with somebody, probably he knew very well, and he made a very clear statement. Look, as far as my personal belief is concerned, I am 100% convinced he's the same person. But I was not able to prove it because of I got no support from the government. That's what he said in that particular tape. So he made the statement publicly that this man could be him. So I think that alone itself is sufficient reason for us to pay some attention to this case. Because if at all this angle is true, suddenly this case from the times of our grandparents' time, my grandparents' time, your probably great-grandparents' time, from that time it becomes my issue. At least mine it becomes. Because the youngest man who saw this man face to face, this Bhagwanji, is on Facebook. Barely in his 40s. 85 is very recent. Rajiv Gandhi was the Prime Minister. So this suddenly it becomes an issue of history. It becomes somewhat closer because people who saw him, people who were part of the issue, whatever happened, most of them are alive today. This is a living thing. Faizabad is not very far off. So suddenly it becomes not an issue of history, not of Stalin's time, not of the time of Nehru, but of roughly at least my time. It becomes a fairly recent. So that brings out the thing. Now this man, whoever he was very, very strange character. He turned up one day from, he surfaced in Lucknow in 1955-56. I do not know which year, but either of these 2 years. Very strange person. He would not show his face to anybody. He was accompanied by one Sanskrit teacher, later joined by his daughter, the teacher's daughter, and they were more or less servants to him. And he would not show his face to anybody. He will not talk to anybody. He will not give you anything in writing. He will just put something on a piece of slate and give it to you. If you were to enter his room, he will either cover his face with a monkey cap or something. So he was completely, he was not there. So nobody knows, nobody meets, so on and so forth. But there were rumors that the then Chief Minister of UP, Sampurnand, used to come and see him at night. By and by, eventually, things start to come out. One day somebody heard him speak. So they say his pronunciation is very clear. He's very, very crystal clear pronunciation. Speaks English with accent. Bangla is very clear. Calcation accent. Whatever, because in Bangla, those who are outside from Calcutta, they would know. Bangla can be spoken in different accents. Hindi has an accent. I've got a typical Punjabi, Haryanvi accent of Hindi. English, even my English I have a Punjabi accent. So in Bangla, you have a different accent. People who have lived in Calcutta, so that is a Calcation accent. So this man had a Calcation accent. Whoever he was, he had lived in Calcutta for quite some time. So the way he would pronounce his Sanskrit shloka and people said extraordinary voice, they've never heard of it. Because for most people, he was a person behind the curtain. But then, there were people who, for some reason, they saw his face. And they subsequently some of them told Commission. So their view was that what they were seeing was exactly a replica of Subhash Chandra Bose. The only thing, he was old. So this is what happened. So wherever he lived, there would be controversy. People would get suspicious. Who is this man? He's not coming out at night. There are cars coming. People are coming, so on and so forth. What is this? So then he would change places. And for some reason, everywhere there will be Netaji link story. For example, one story he himself told once that he wanted to have his eyeglasses changed. And he went to a very famous shop, optician in Aminabad, Lucknow, still there. I came to know. And he said, I went inside and I was clean shaven like a Buddhist monk. I was wearing a saffron color thing, but I had a headgear on my head. And there was some kind of something was kept in front of me. So I started trying these glasses, round one. He said, I put one and I removed my headgear. And suddenly there's a hushed silence in the area. And there was a young man standing next to me. He fell on my feet saying, Netaji. He said, I ran out of the place. And he recounted this story to an INA Secret Service man years later. And he said that, this is why I keep beard now. That's why I'm no longer clean shaven. Because I went outside without my beard and immediately people spotted me. This is what he told subsequently. So wherever he lived in remote areas, there will be confusion. People would be suspicious. So he would leave place and go to some other. So he changed many houses, many places. Even Lucknow he changed to place. Then he went to Naimisharanya. Then he was in Basti for 10 years. He was in Ayodhya. Ayodhya 10 years he spent changed at least 5 places. Eventually he landed in Faizabad in 83. So we call him Faizabad ka Baba because he was last here. Otherwise, if you ask me, he lived mostly in Basti and Ayodhya, remote areas. This is one of the houses he stayed in Ayodhya. This was one of the houses he stayed in Basti. I'll come to that later. The Basti and in fact, I'll tell you that if you have a Babaji sitting in Basti, I wonder if any of you have been to that place, and he subscribes Time magazine, among other things. That by itself is a matter of inquiry. Forget other things, that he had all the Charles Dickens, he had all the P.G. Wodehouse, he had the entire Encyclopedia Britannica, and he was able to recall everything from everything understand, from astronomy to amazing things are, every day we're learning. Whoever this man was, he was talking about quantum physics in those days, so on and so forth. So I do not know, but it's a very amazing thing. In our country, any holy man who can speak in English, invariably he'll go to America. Show me a Babaji who speaks English who's in India. They will go to America, like Mahendra Mashi, they'll go to Europe and America. They get salvation there only. Or they will have hippies coming to them. Why? How come a man who was pretty good in English, and I'm told he was very good to look at and he was a command, why did he not have followers? Very few, hardly 10 people would see him at one point in time, and he would not even come out of the room. He would be all the time. This was the house he was last in, Ram Bhavan. Not this place, this is a koti. Behind the koti, there's a shanty, 1 room shanty, 2 room shanty. He was there. So this is how it is. So he was lastly here. This was picture taken some time back when me and some members of Netaji's family had gone there to see that. This is the room where he stayed. So now it's changed, of course, but he would be here, sitting here, and anybody coming normally would be outside, and there'll be curtain in between. So people come. Very few people were allowed inside. This is a place where he was cremated in 85. It is a place called Guptar Ghat. It is held that Lord Ram had taken Jal Samadhi in this area. So there was a huge temple also there. So this is where they have created a Samadhi for him, 85, where he was cremated. So this is that holy spot called Guptar Ghat, Faizabad. This is a picture taken of people who, they're all standard. See, that people do have motive to tell lie. For example, somebody can say Anuj is cooking up stories because he wants to sell his book. But I have known people who have absolutely no motive. Why? There should be motive for telling a lie. No, even I don't have motive, because if I want to sell a book, I will say he was killed in Russia. That will make news. Just talking about Faizabad doesn't help me at all, to be very frank. But what can I do? The fact is leading me to that area. After this man died, there was, I think Subramaniam Swami made a tweet that this man was set up by Intelligence Bureau. Well, I have gone deep into this case, a lot of data. We will discuss some other time. But tell me one thing, in 1985, who was interested in Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose in our country? Rajiv Gandhi was the king of the country. Full majority, 350 plus seat I think he had got. I think better than 400 seat, he was the reigning supreme. Why would government of India create a fake story in 1985? For what purpose? What are you gaining out of it? Who is bothered about Subhash Chandra Bose's death mystery in 85? Nobody was bothered. The story was dead in 55. After Shanwaz committee report, it was never a big issue. There were some people like me who were raising hue and cry, but they were not successful. So why would they create a fake story in 85? And this man came into limelight only after his death. Not before. When he was alive, nobody knew anything. After he dies, there were inquiries by journalists. This, for example, people called Northern India Patrika And there was inquiry by one Ashok Tandon first, and then these people are there. They're more journalists. They have just gone and looked into it. So there were 3 people who did the inquiry. Nirmal Nibedan, he was a big shot. If he had, he died soon after. I don't know why. There was an accident. People have some theory about it. If Nibedan had survived, he would have been today one of the top journalists of the country. He was a senior person. So Nibedan, and 2 more people, they did an inquiry about the Faizabad episode, and they came out with a conclusion which are, this man appears to be Subhash Bose. So what is the thing? So and he and Mr. Kausar Hussain and Mr. V.N. Arora. Kausar Hussain is no more. Mr. Arora is still there. He was principal of a military school or something or the other. So these are standard people. They have no motive to tell lies. When this story broke in September 85, this man is Subhash Bose, and they were in a small controversy. Netaji's niece, Lalita Bose, he has many nephews and many nieces. In fact, Subhash's hierarchy, if you see in the family, the order, you have Sharat Chandra Bose. There were others also. The Sudhir was also elder. Sunil and Sudhir, they were eldest brothers. Then you have Sharat Bose. Then you have Suresh Bose. Then you have Tirumala. Then you have Subhash. So this Tirumala's sister was there in Gorakhpur. She was married into a family in Gorakhpur. So she was very close by. But I think she was dead well before 1955. Lalita Bose was the daughter of Suresh Bose. She would be the Masi of Amit Mitra, FICCI General Secretary, and currently the West Bengal Finance Minister. So the real Masi of that man. Lalita Bose came, and what happened when this Bhagwanji died? People entered the room and they open his boxes, so they find objects, for example, a lot of pictures of Netaji's mother and father. Why would somebody keep somebody else's mother's picture with him? And they were sent to him from Calcutta with we are sending mother's pictures of Netaji's family members, and they were not displayed. He did not make a display of them. They were discovered. Then other letters, correspondence, which were one way or the other all about Subhash Bose. There were a lot of letters which indicated, 27th birthday. They used the word birthday, not anniversary. Anniversary for dead people. So there were description about the birth celebration here and there. Every information, every report concerning Subhash Chandra Bose, he's being supplied. He's being informed about it. There are names of big people there that they were in, probably he knew them or they knew him, something like that. There were objects, they were Rolex gold, Omega gold watch, Rolex watch, so on and so forth. Extraordinary. Lalita Bose came and she started crying. She said, this is my auntie's photo, this is my nana's photos, this is Dada, so this is my uncle Subhash Chandra Bose's handwriting, this is my father's handwriting, this is my, apparently. So she became, and she actually told media there at that point in time, and that this is my uncle, it looks like. So she became emotionally, of course. Then what she did was, so this is one of the statements she made in press subsequently, that he was of the same age. Whoever this Bhagwanji was, he claimed that he was born on the same day, same time as Subhash Chandra Bose. January 1897. Same day and same time also. They used to celebrate mark his birth function. I think roughly 12:15, that is the time, I've forgotten what is the time. 12:15 I think is the time Subhash Chandra Bose was born. Size, he was the same height, 5 foot 10 inches. In fact, I tried to confuse one man in Faizabad doctor. I told him, look, Subhash Chandra Bose is 6 feet tall, so how come you are telling me this man is shorter? So you are wrong. He said, I may be wrong. I was just testing him. Subhash was 5'10", and he was very fair color. There were some bodily marks also, so we found from the family what are the body marks. Somehow that tally. For example, Subhash Bose had a mark of an operation because he had stone taken out in Switzerland. So this Bhagwanji had also a cut mark here. Subhash Bose had gap in his teeth, and this man had a gap in his teeth when he had teeth earlier. So people said he has a gap in his teeth. So there are certain marks which I don't suppose anybody can make out. I mean, who would, for example, notice? I have not seen Subhash Chandra Bose. Subhash Chandra Bose used to sleep. He had insomnia. He used to not sleep at all. Very little. This Bhagwanji used to sleep only for 1 hour. Nobody ever saw him sleeping. So there are many things like add up. There's something thing. Last line. His notes on books in English and Bengali looks like the writing of Netaji. If this statement is given to a court of law by a relative, and if a report is given by a handwriting expert, it will be as good as a DNA testing. A relative of yours, close relative of yours, your brother or sister, saying that this is my brother or sister's handwriting, plus the expert's opinion, it becomes very, very strong evidence. This much I know. It is just a technicality that she passed away in 1998. Before Mukherjee Commission formed, she passed away the same year. I was talking to you about the English skill. I cannot, Bangla is very good, but I do not know Bengali, so I cannot quote the Bengali parts of what this man said. For example, in 1960, in Basti, when he was a local person, wrote him a letter, Durga Prasad Pandey, very intelligent, shrewd man. He said that, great Bhagwanji, Jai Hind. My name is Durga Prasad Pandey. I am named as such because I was born years after my parents' marriage. And then they went to some Durga temple, and that's why I'm called Durga Prasad. And that certain Mr. Jwala Prasad, who lives in Basti in this place, before he passed away on his deathbed, he told me who you are. So I am interested to meet you. And he said that your name, there was a great time in India when immortal words of Jai Hind, resounded in the country. Actually, he wrote everything to suggest that I know you, Subhash Bose. So I want to meet you. But he did not mention the name Subhash. So this Bhagwanji, when he received that letter, he gave a dictation. He sent this man this answer. So this is part of that letter. Subsequently, Durga Prasad Pandey met him. He saw his face for several years. So that's another matter altogether. So this was letter which we got from Durga Prasad Pandey, which was sent to him by this so-called Babaji sitting in Basti. So this is the kind of English this man uses, a sample of the thing. He wrote by, and he's writing like a bureaucrat. I'm a bona fide Dashnami sannyasi, and you will know that a man under the holy orders incurs death according to the civil laws, and a sannyasi is dead to his former life. It is in the keeping of Divine Mother Durga and Father Lord Shiva. In passing, you shall find cogent answers to all your hypotheses, queries, thoughts, both as expressed in your letter and which remain unexpressed in your heart. Pursue with your heart calmly, quietly, lovingly. Every word, phrase, sentence and their constructions are a pointer for you. They are pregnant with possibilities. Seek and thou shall find. चार बाबे ऐसे पैदा हो जाए देश में अंग्रेजी बोलने वाले, हम तो अंग्रेजों को पीछे छोड़ देंगे. ऐसी बाबा अंग्रेजी बोलता कोई कभी बस्ती के अंदर? मतलब आप नेताजी ना वो छोड़ दो आप उसको. आप वो बस्ती में किसी को हेलो के स्पेलिंग लिखा था, आई एम नॉट बट टू शो पीपल नो हेलो का प्रोनाउंस क्या होता है वहाँ पे आजकल. इट्स बैक ऑफ द बियॉन्ड एरिया. बिल्कुल ही. नो दिस इज अ स्टेटमेंट. फॉर एग्जाम्पल another thing he mentioned somewhere. This is a Bhagavanji. He talked about a lot of things. I'm told that even quantum physics he talked about. So for example, this is a statement attributed to him. He wrote once that we human beings, we are at all times radiating energy which is soaked and stored by items around us. Even our thoughts radiate an electrical field which leaves an imprint on objects in the form of energy. According to eminent Russian scientist Gennady Sergeyev, there's some spelling mistake, every human being leaves an electrical imprint, energetical imprints, as well as an informational imprint on objects that he touches or is close to. Every object around us has magnetic characteristic of its molecules. It is then that it becomes a natural magnetic recorder. Even over a brief period, man can record the information of his entire life on a nearby object. By brief, I mean in a split of a second. There are many such things. He has given comments about the military warfare, which are obviously the word of a man who's well read. And has a diverse understanding, from military to intelligence, to yoga, to pranayam, to cigars, to samosa, to tabla, to two-stroke engine, from surgery to homeopathy, from, I don't know, and there's endless people because people who are very close to him in Laz, they were all doctors. He said, we cannot tell you the things, the kind of things this man used to talk about, is the breadth of his intellectual horizon of this man, the kind of things that he would talk about. You name the issue, and he knows the details about it. Chemical, I think I met somebody, a chemical engineer, he said he foxed me by his knowledge of the chemicals, He said, why don't you do this thing? Made several statements about the Indian Army. I am a Hindi speaker, so this man did not know Hindi. He used to think in English and write in Hindi. So his Hindi is very wrong. Structure is very wrong in Hindi. So he said, I am the son of Mother India. I am, sometimes. There were many letters, which were found. They were saying, you are the best son of Mother India. Sometime Netaji mentioned, why don't you come out? We have been waiting for such a long time. How long do we wait? We are also getting old. These kind of, so many letters. At one place he was described as Bhisham Pitama. So many years have passed by, we have been waiting. So that sort of thing, you have in this correspondence which was discovered from his residence. So this is sample, this is a very poor photocopy taken in 85. Photocopy of the photocopy. So this man has a very good handwriting, whoever he was. This is Hindi, but Hindi was faulty. Too many Bangla words, too many Urdu words. So whoever he was, he did not know Hindi. This looks like Hindi, but it is Devanagari, but it's in Bangla. In fact, what happened once, he wrote a letter to somebody in Calcutta, and he said, and the other person who was very, very close to Subhash Chandra Bose, I'll give you example, and this lady wrote, she said, the way you are writing, anybody can figure out who you are. So he writes, is that so? I will not change my writing style, I will change my handwriting. So he tried to change, and he tried to write, he would write in capital letters. Now he's writing Bangla in Devanagari script. So for example, here he's just somehow, I think he was not in a different frame of mind. He's saying कि मैं मर गया हूँ, भूत हो गया हूँ. I've died, I've become a ghost. He would say that I'm a ghost. Dead man, you're a dead man, he would say like this. When your dead man was in Berlin. So this is the kind of language he would use. So they were names for him, The people call him Gumnami Baba, but he was called Bhagwanji by his follower, which is not a name. He himself used to call him a dead man. Sometimes he called him a Frankenstein, which is Frankenstein monster. I have turned into Frankenstein, which you know the analogy. Frankenstein was raised from the dead. General Death was another name for him. General Death he used. Mahakal, these kind of things he used in fact. So he said, why do you form loaded dice commission one after another to know about me? Then he's quoting something from, I think, Latin, that all people wish to be fooled. This is some reflection, some certain bent of mind he was. More interesting are his comments on books about politics and history. He's writing as if he's a big daddy of everybody. And he was normally a very dignified man, very much restrained. But apparently the books which are about the 1962 India-China war, he lost his temper. So he has scribbled a lot of unsavory details there and written a lot of things there. For example, this is a very well-known book, Himalayan Blunder, written by Brigadier Dalvi, who was taken a prisoner in the 1962 war. For those of you who do not know, the problem was that Modi ji is talking about Swachhta. Please understand basic thing about Mahatma Gandhi. Mahatma Gandhi's basic principles in life were three. Swachhta was there, but not in top three. The first was Satya, truth. That's why we have this Satyamev Jayate. But it is not applied to Subhash Bose. Satya is the first thing. Second is Ahimsa. And third I can't talk about because there are girls sitting here. So Satya and Ahimsa are the two most important principles of Mahatma Gandhi. Third was Brahmacharya. So this is part of the Mahatma Gandhi collected works. No quoting from the unreliable sources. Gandhi ji was of the opinion that the Indian army is not required, should be disbanded. So in line with that idea, even Pandit ji had a great aversion for the Indian army. भाई आपने तो इतनी बड़ी ताकत आपने अंग्रेजों को भगा दिया अहिंसा से, तो ये पाकिस्तान जाना किस खेत की मूली है? इतनी तगड़ी शक्ति आपके पास में अहिंसा की ताकत है. ओबामा भी कहता है कि अभी तक रेलेवेंट है इंडिया में हिंसा. आप दिखाओ जरा दिल्ली पुलिस वाले कितनी हिंसा दिखाते हैं. वहाँ जाके लड़कियाँ आई थी जब उसमें वो जो केस हुआ था, रेप केस हुआ था, तो लड़कियों को डंडे मार रखे उन्होंने वहाँ पे. इनको पता नहीं कहाँ की बातें उल्टी सीधी लेके आते हैं लोगों के सामने. एनी हाँ, बट ये जो बात, तो इन्होंने कहा कि तो इनको एक स्टार्टिंग से प्रॉब्लम थी कि आर्मी में ना कम करो. पंडित जी ने बोला भी था, मैं कहीं किसी ने कोटेशन दिया कि हमें आर्मी की जरूरत नहीं, हम तो पुलिस से काम चला लेंगे, हमारा कोई दुश्मनी नहीं है, हम तो अहिंसा के पुजारी हैं सारे के सारे. सुभाष बोस ने लिख के अपने भाई को लेटर दिया, छपा हुआ है पब्लिकेशन में, कि गांधीज़म विल लैंड इंडिया इनटू अ डिच. द काइंड ऑफ लैंग्वेज, जिस तरह के आपके आइडिया हैं दिमाग के कि इंडस्ट्री मत लो, अहिंसा करो, ब्रह्मचर्य करो, आप सब गड्ढे में जाओगे सारे के सारे. भगवान भला करे कि हम लोगों ने फॉलो नहीं किया उसके प्रिंसिपल, ब्रह्मचर्य वाले खासकर. तो ये इनके चक्कर में इन्होंने आर्मी को कोई सपोर्ट नहीं किया. दिस इज द बैकग्राउंड ऑफ द इंडिया चाइना वॉर. आपने आर्मी को सपोर्ट नहीं किया. जिनके फादर मदर उस टाइम पे, अगर खासकर जिनके दादा वादा थे, उनको मालूम होगा फौज में क्या हालत थी. इन्होंने हत्या, इनफैक्ट पार्लियामेंट में लोगों ने, एक गांधी जी के चेले ने बोला, कि बड़े गांधी लीडर थे, उनका नाम भूल गया, कि आपने आर्मी का बजट क्यों बढ़ा दिया, गांधी जी की आत्मा को बड़ी वो पहुँच रही है उसमें. बिल्कुल ठीक बात है यार, गांधी जी अहिंसा के बिल्कुल सपोर्ट में थे. आज भारत के देश में आप सबसे ज़्यादा हथियार आप खरीदते हैं गांधी जी के नाम पे. गांधी जी की समाधि में जाकर के आर्मी का चीफ सलूट मारता है, गांधी जी की आत्मा को झटका पहुंचेगा। गांधी जी तो आर्मी के खिलाफ में थे। गांधी का नाम लेके हमारे देश का रक्षा मंत्री सबसे ज़्यादा हथियार खरीदता दुनिया में, और हमें कह रहे थे गांधी जी रेलेवेंट है। गांधी जी रेलेवेंट है, गांधी जी ने सुभाष बोस की मिस्ट्री की बात भी की थी, वहाँ रेलेवेंट नहीं है। गांधी ने सच की बात की थी, वो उनका बहुत बड़ा प्लस पॉइंट है। गांधी जी के 1000 प्लस पॉइंट है। वो तो मेरे मजाक में एक बात यहाँ की बात बोल दी, हर एक आदमी के 2-4 फॉल्ट होते हैं, आप उनके वो पॉइंट नहीं देखेंगे, आप उस पर पढ़ें। तो इन्होंने आर्मी को सपोर्ट नहीं किया, उस चक्कर में आपकी आर्मी वीक हो गई। और भगवान भला करे चाइनीज़ का कि उन्होंने हमारे को 2 थप्पड़ मार के हमको लाइन पे लेके आ गए। उसके बाद से आर्मी लाइन पर आ गई कि भैया हथियार दो इनको। ये जो कहानियाँ सुनाते हो बच्चों को कि आपने वो अंग्रेज़ों को आपने वो हिंसा का वो किया, वो चले गए, यार ये तो ऐसे फिल्मी कहानियाँ होती हैं, तो कैसे आप बातें कर रहे हो? ऐसे होती दुनिया। आप अपने किराएदार को निकाल के दिखाओ अपने घर से, आप जो बैठ जाता है वहाँ पे एक बार। उसके कारण थे, कॉम्प्लिकेटेड सिचुएशन थी, वर्ल्ड वॉर हो गया, वर्ल्ड वॉर में उनकी पॉलिशन वीक हो गई, यहाँ आर्मी में रिवोल्ट होने शुरू हो गए थे बिकॉज ऑफ सुभाष बोस। दैट इज वाई दे वेंट। गांधी जी का भी रोल है उसमें, ये मैं ये कह रहा गांधी का रोल नहीं है उसमें, गांधी जी लोग लेकर आए। लेकिन आप अगर जिस तरह का आपने नैरेटिव क्रिएट किया है कि हम लोग क्यों रिएक्ट कर रहे हैं, वाई पीपल लाइक मी आर सो वी आर गोइंग यू कैन इवन से कि वी आर नो, इस तरह की लैंग्वेज हम क्यों यूज़ कर रहे हैं? क्योंकि आपने 40-50 साल से हमको यही पढ़ा है जी, गांधी जी का नाम है। वो एक गाना आता था जो थोड़े ज़्यादा लोग के उनको याद होगा, दे दी हमें आज़ादी बिना खड़क बिना ढाल, साबरमती के संत उन्हें कर दिया कमाल। आप एक लाइन में आप दुनिया भर के जितने हमारे फ्रीडम फाइटर हैं, भगत सिंह से लेकर सबकी आपने बेइज्जती कर दी। आपने इतने लोगों ने कुर्बानियाँ दी, आपने कहा जी हिंसा से गए। अब 40 साल में उन्होंने किसी का इज्जत नहीं है। कोई भगत सिंह का जन्मदिन नहीं मनता था देश में, आपको मालूम होना चाहिए। सुभाष बोस की कोई फोटो वोटो नहीं थी, सब ये गांधी गांधी सुबह शाम बोलते थे। उसमें थोड़ी हमको चिड़ हो गई है। अगर आप ऐसा ब्लैक एंड वाइट नेरेटिव करोगे तो हम भी ब्लैक एंड वाइट पे उतर आएंगे फिर। तो उसका रिएक्शन है, उसका रिएक्शन हो रहा है इन चीज़ों का। सारे मैं बचपन में छोटा सा पढ़ाते ही वो चाचा नेहरू चाचा नेहरू चाचा नेहरू, अब आगे निकल रहे हैं कि मैं चाचा नेहरू वाज अ लेडीज मैन। आपने बचपन में गलत पढ़ा, आपने हमको आपने बी रियलिस्टिक, देयर इज नथिंग रॉन्ग इन बीइंग अ लेडीज मैन, देयर इज नथिंग रॉन्ग इन बीइंग अ लेडीज मैन, बट व्हाई यू टेलिंग पीपल द रॉन्ग, देन यू क्लेम दैट यू आर सत्यमेव जयते, यू आर ऑल ट्रुथ। गांधी जी ने कहा, गांधी जी ने कहा सच बोलो, आप झूठ बोलते हो उनके नाम पे साहब। उस चक्कर में जब इनको हार, तो उस पर ये आदमी जो भी था इसका यहाँ पे इसका टेम्पर लूज कर गया। तो वहाँ उसने बड़े कमेंट मारे जिसमें से कुछ मैं आपको दिखा सकता हूँ। एक जगह लिखा उन्होंने कि पंडित नेहरू ने वर्ड यूज़ किए कि वी वर स्टैब्ड इन आवर बैक्स। So this man, this Bhagwan Ji, this Baba writes across it, because this is a very poor photocopy, I'm sorry I cannot, and it's a very small book. He must have difficulty in writing, it's a very small pocket size book. A lie black as hell, he was a clown and a knave at that. This is very refined way of writing in English. And he writes in a way as if he has a great understanding of the military and other issues. Just for example, here Brigadier Dalvi writes on the top that there came a time during the war that we could have attacked the Chinese on the other side, but we did not do so. This man is writing that yes, you took the right crucial decision in that event. Had you battered, you would have made gravest catastrophe. I know because I got the facts from the enemy commander. Then he goes on to make personal comments about a general in that particular war. Aren't your hype is sentimental? I know General Prasad only as a yes man lapdog to the high command and the political bosses. He never possessed strength of character to take up the command. When the necessity arose, he was afraid. So whoever this man was, he was not an ordinary Baba in that sense. He was a little bit, thing. In fact, I was talking to Swami Ramdev. I told him that you are talking about, this. He had great, insight into Surya Namaskar and Pranayam, black money in those days. He talked about it. So this is so he was an extraordinary person, and at the same time he was a chain smoker also. Some Netaji doesn't figure very clearly in his correspondence. Apparently, all the people who wrote to him were under instruction not to refer to that name, because whoever this man was, he did not want this thing to be known. In fact, people would ask him, Bhagwanji, why are you not coming out? So his answer would be something which you don't expect a Babaji to give. He said, my coming out is not in India's national interest. I'll come to that later on. But this is not the words a Babaji would use. My coming out is not in India's national interest. These are words of a bureaucrat. So that's a very official language they're using. Now this is, for example, how things would operate. This is one giveaway, one letter found there. It would be like this. The people meeting him, the number would be very low normally. But invariably people would come to know and people would talk it out. For example, I met one DG of the UP police, BP Singhal, Ashok Singhals, brother. He was a DJ. He told me when I was talking, he said, no, I remember that certain so-and-so had come to me once and told me that, चलिए आपको सुभाष बाबू से मिलाने के लिए चलते हैं. He said, I did not know that. मैंने कहा, yes, but that man was in touch with this man. I have known, for example, a former director of CBI who was in a very high-ranking position in Lucknow. And he also told me, yes, even to our level, we were aware of the rumors and stories that Netaji is around. So even at the very high level, people were aware of it in the police circles about it. So people would tell each other, and they would drop a hint, look, he is here, you want to meet him. And then this man, Bhagavanji, would not give access to anybody easily. Normally, people would have to wait for years before he would give an access. Years you will have to wait. He will not allow you. And it would be very formal. Suppose somebody wants to meet him, he would insist, who is this man? Give me his biodata, credentials. I want this, who is this man? And ask him to write down for me. And then he would check it himself. He will verify whether this man is telling the truth or not. So there was a case of certain Mr. Manu Bhai Bhimani, a Gujarati businessman, who, as we know in history, he was supportive of Gandhiji and Subhash Bose and others. He was a businessman. So this Manu Bhai Bhimani met a person who was known to Bhagavanji. And after meeting him, this follower wrote a note to Bhagavanji which was found in Faizabad. So here is giving a summary about Mr. Manu Bhai Bhimani. He is saying that Mr. Manu Bhimani talks too much. One, he says that if Netaji is alive, why does he come out in public? Everybody will accept his leadership. So this is one letter where Netaji appears very clearly. Then he is this man, this Netaji, this follower of Bhagavanji is writing this to this holy man. Point 3, he helped Shri Sharat Chandra Bose all the time till he was alive. That means till Sharat Chandra Bose was alive, that is 1950, Manu Bhai Bhimani used to help him. 4, he helped Netaji. Manu Bhai Bhimani is claiming that he helped Netaji when he escaped from Calcutta to Kabul. Shishir and Manu Bhai went with him. So what this Faizabad fellow does, this is a very poor photocopy, that he cut out these points. He said, false. You do not know facts. And then he writes, Mejda helped him. Everyone knows this except you, fool. So Mejda is a word Manjile Bhaiya in Bangla. And Subhash Bose used to call Sharat Bose as Mejda. So this is suddenly this response comes. So the value of this would be from the handwriting expert's opinion. But this is a very, he's referring to his brother in the same way Subhash would have done. So this is interesting in that aspect. And he did not meet Manu Bhai Bhimani. In fact, when we speak of Subhash Chandra Bose, we think of him only as Netaji. But he was Netaji in his life for basically 3 years. 41 he leaves India, 42 I think he came out of Germany, 42, 43 he was when he arrived in Southeast Asia, he took up the command of the INA there. So essentially he became Netaji only in 42 when he was in Germany. He was called Netaji. Before that he was called Desh Gaurav Subhash Babu. That means Subhash Chandra Bose as INA leader as we remember him today, that period of his life was only for 2 or 3 years. Before that, for almost 20 years, he was a very well-known leader in Congress party. And the revolutionary circle, especially in Calcutta and elsewhere, they had known him very well. And there were people who had known him for all these 20, 30 years. They were very close to him on a personal level. But because their names are not in media, they did not get highlighted. And there was so much of spotlight on the INA people that we tend to forget about the other people. Like any other big leader, he knew many people. And there were many who were close to him, we would not know. We would not know how many people Mr. Modi is close to actually. We would not know because we will know only what is in the media. So this man, for example, Pabitra Mohan Roy, he was in the Anushilan Samiti, a revolutionary freedom, this thing. And I think this is the ultimate test of anyone's, loyalty towards any man. He left his wife and family for Subhash Bose. Ran off to INA fight. So this is, I don't think anybody can go do anything more than that. Completely loyal to him. They were hardcore Subhash Bose loyalist. He was an INA Secret Service agent. His name does figure in history. He became an MLA, then he left because the moment he get in touch with Bhagwanji, anybody meets, he said, don't be in politics. Go out of the limelight. Don't be in limelight because he never liked people who were in limelight to be in touch with him. He wanted to lie low because he wants to remain in hiding for whatever reason. I'll come to that reason afterwards. this man was sent by the Subhash Bose, among many other, he sent a lot of spies from Southeast Asia into India around 45, so that they can do some sabotage here. They were secret missions which he tried. They failed because they were betrayed. So this man also got caught, along with, there were two more people, Mahendra Singh Gill, Amrik Singh Gill and Mahendra Singh, and there was another man. So one of them betrayed them, and he and Amrik Singh Gill were caught, and they were sentenced to death. And there is the official version that their life was spared only after Netaji's niece, because Netaji's niece's husband was also caught with them, and they were also sentenced to death, which is Dr. Amit Mitra's father, Haridas Mitra. Haridas Mitra, Pabitra Mohan Roy, Amrik Singh Gill, they were sentenced to death. So Haridas Mitra's wife, which is Subhash Bose's niece, she approached Gandhiji, and Gandhiji talked to Viceroy, and their death sentences were commuted. So they were eventually set off with the other INA man. So these are the kind of big people I'm talking about. Now, there were 85 letters were found in Faizabad, written by this man to this Bhagwanji. From these letters, and after talking to his family members and those who were his friends and sister, I think he knew him. This man thought he was Subhash Bose. And this is how he was dealing with him. So this is what is. So there were many like him. There were a lot of former revolutionaries, former freedom. This man, for example, Sunil Das, he lost his entire family, brother, sister, everybody died during freedom struggle. They don't have any name in history books. They were unsung heroes of the freedom struggle. He published an article in American Journal of Physical Chemistry in 1930s. People like him could have gone to America and made names for them, but they stayed in India and were forgotten by the Free India government. So he was also in touch with him, and his reports, what he's writing to this Bhagwanji, it reads like an intelligence report given by an agent. So just to give you an example, this is, now for example, this is an example of a note found in Faizabad. This is apparently written by Prafulla Chandra Ghosh, who was the Chief Minister of Bengal. He was a famous leader, but he was also Chief Minister for a certain period of time. He's writing to this man, whatever happened between Wellington Square and Haripura, if that had not happened, life would have taken a different turn for me. So without saying anything, he's actually saying he's writing to Subhash Bose, because he became the Congress president in Haripura. Wellington Square, he was kicked out because of Gandhi. So without naming him, without talking, they're actually going about. Well, a man who doesn't come out of his room, he stays all the time. There are somebody, Sardarji is writing to him from Dera Baba Nanak that aap kab bahar nikloge? They will people, very bad English. People will shed tears of blood if you are really Netaji, so on and so forth. Then some Muslim chap is also writing to him, ki please come out, secret sadhu, I know who you are. How many years do we have to wait? And then you have letters coming from the RSS chief, Guru Galwalkar. He is the political guru of Mr. Modi, of Mr. Advani, of Mr. Vajpayee. He is the man who created RSS as is today. He was a very big man. Why would he write a letter to somebody like Gumnami Baba, who doesn't come out of his room? And he would start this letter by saying, ki, I bow before you 100 times. It means, I was told by a former minister that he is writing to somebody who is a very big shot. So that big shot is not coming out of his house. और इस देश में ऐसे कौन सी महानात्मा आ गई जिसको हिंदू मुसलमान सारे के उसकी इज्जत करें? मेरे ख्याल से एक ही आदमी था जिसकी इज्जत सब लोग करते, क्योंकि लोगों ने स्टेटमेंट दी थी कि जो लोग INA के लोग बाद में पाकिस्तान चले गए, तो उन्होंने बाद में कहा था कि there was only one man who could have united this country, and that was Subhash Bose. Muslims were not taking Gandhi's lead. गांधी जी की अगर उनको लीड एक्सेप्टेबल होती तो पार्टीशन नहीं होता. That means Gandhi, Patel, everybody failed. But in INA he was able to unite people. तो ऐसी कौन सी महानात्मा पैदा हो गई यहाँ पे बस्ती में फैजाबाद में कि सब लोग चिट्ठियाँ लिख रहे हैं उसको? कुछ ना कुछ तो खास होगा उसमें. ये एक 1964 का declassified record है CIA का. It doesn't, I don't want to show it to prove you anything, but it is a declassified document. 1964 में क्यों भैया CIA रिकॉर्ड क्रिएट करेगा? 1964 में it is not possible, why? Unless until there is some smoke. 64 में CIA के रिकॉर्ड बन रहे हैं. And it says that there is an informant, somebody who is supplying information to the CIA, and he's saying that there now exists a strong possibility that Bose is leading the rebellious group undermining the current Nehru government. तो that means कम से कम CIA के लेवल पे भी कुछ ना कुछ इन्फॉर्मेशन जा रही थी कि साहब सुभाष बोस जिंदा हो सकता है. So अगर ये बात सच है, मुझे नहीं मालूम ये सच है कि नहीं। ये तो वो रशिया में मारने वाली स्टोरी तो खत्म होगी ना 1950। आपने कहा कि स्टालिन के टाइम मार दिया, स्टालिन मरा है 53 में। अगर 53 में वो मर चुके हैं तो ये 63 64 तक में आके कैसे कहानियाँ बन रही है? सो देयर इज समथिंग, दिस क्वेश्चंस नीड आंसर। ये एक आदमी है त्रिलोक्यनाथ चक्रवर्ती महाराज। ही स्टेड व्हाट, is there a time limit or something? How much? Huh? 5 minutes. A roof needs to be vacated. How much time do I have? 6-7 minutes. So I will have to rush you through. Again, there are letters about people whose credential, whose integrity you cannot doubt. This man spent 30 years in jail. He was very so these all people are writing to him. In a nutshell, there were people whose credential you cannot doubt. Those who were very close to Subhash Chandra Bose, they were all of the belief this man is him. I believe this is a picture of Leela Roy being put up in Parliament. Dr. Manmohan Singh, you know that if your picture is in Parliament, you are not an ordinary person, especially if you are not a Congress Party worker. You talk, we are in Kanpur. In Kanpur, people think of Lakshmi Sehgal. When you think of Netaji, you say, who was the most important of Netaji's aide, who was a female aide? Lakshmi Sehgal. Lakshmi Sehgal was an INA captain. He was Supreme Commander. He was INA commander only for 2 years. This lady virtually grew up with Subhash Bose. Her father was a Rai Bahadur, and she was the only freedom fighter, revolutionary women fighter who came from a rich background, and yet she got into the revolutionary freedom fight. And I think she was the first MA in English from that part of the world in those days. Leela Roy was very close to him, so very, very close to him. And people tell me from the family, I can understand Pabitra Mohan Roy making a mistake, I can understand so on and so forth, but it was impossible for Leela auntie to make a mistake. She knew him too damn well. Leela Roy's letters are very clear. She holds him. For example, when she met him in 63, again long story, after cut short, I don't think so 5 minutes is sufficient. She writes to him, and she's writing a letter to Subhash Bose's best friend. And she's writing to him that my hand is shaking because I have just suffered a stroke. This is a picture taken in 1946. She must have been 47, 48 in those days. It's an old days picture. She's writing in 63 that my hand is shaking because I suffered a stroke. But this is about your friend. He's alive. He's in India. And he remembers you, and he says that, he said, I can't say more. There's a strong interjection on me not to say anything more. But he remembers you, and he says, it was Dilip who always wanted to make me a mistake. So this is Dilip Kumar Roy, Subhash Chandra Bose's best friend. This is Cambridge, Subhash Bose. This is Dilip Kumar Roy. Dilip Kumar Roy became a sadhu eventually. So this is how it is. Suresh Chandra Bose, Netaji's elder brother, I have reason to believe he was in touch with this man. He knew he was a Subhash Bose. I have to quickly go into it because these are some of the very poor handwriting sample of this man. They were run through a handwriting expert, India's best one, and he said, this is the same man. You all people are into science. Handwriting is science. Even in America, it is acceptable in court of laws and evidence. You can say that it is not like DNA, but it is acceptable in court of law. So it is not possible scientifically for a man to copy somebody else's handwriting in 2 languages and copy it and do so for 30 years. There are samples in Faizabad from late 50s to 1984 in English and in Bangla, and they are matching with Subhash Bose's handwriting. Scientifically impossible. Remarkable similarity sometimes, even though there's a difference, you can barely make out who's Subhash Bose and who's Babaji. This is Subhash Bose, 1930s. This is Baba quoting Umar Khayyam. I have never seen a Babaji quoting Umar Khayyam, poetry. This is, for example, the expert demonstrated to me that this is, whenever Netaji used to insert something, he would make this peculiar mark, insertion mark. He said this is a very peculiar thing in his handwriting. And he finds, for example, the same thing in Baba's handwriting. This is a scribble in 1984. That whatever mark Subhash is making, this is from National Archive, 1930s, this man is also making here. I couldn't make out because there are like hundreds of other things, in Bangla also that this man, thing. And this is, for example, a comment from the expert that even after decades, there is such a remarkable similarity in the handwriting of the Baba and Subhash Bose that, so you can almost see that it's almost similar. The problem was that there was a report, there were 5 teeth were located in Faizabad and there were DNA tests were done and the DNA was negative. So story came out, this obviously rejects the theory. The problem is that the DNA test is a very scientific thing, but human hand is not scientific, especially in a highly corrupt country like ours, where you can pay people money and they'll do anything for you. So these are the times of India. India amongst the most corrupt countries, Advani says. I'm not saying so, Advani is saying so. Walmart flags India, China as a corrupt nation. India, 4th most corrupt nation in the world. There are examples of bungling with the DNA samples in our country. You pay police wala, they will do anything for you. Mukherjee Commission, Justice Mukherjee is aware. DNA test was done by him and still he's saying, I'm convinced. Because he talks about a DNA fraud, of a scientific fraud. This we have known long back. The ministry that he is criticizing, that they are not helping me, the same ministry conducts a DNA test. हिंदुस्तान पाकिस्तान में आप बोलो कि हम कश्मीर की बात करेंगे और हम बोलें कि इजराइल को हम बनाते हैं मीडिएटर, पाकिस्तानी आपके सब बात करेंगे आप साथ में? वो तो कभी नहीं आएंगे. उन्हें पता है इजराइल हमारी सपोर्ट करेगा. तो नेताजी का आप डीएनए टेस्ट करोगे, भगवान जी का टेस्ट करोगे, उसके लिए हम होम मिनिस्ट्री के पास कभी नहीं जाऊँ मैं तो. वो तो डे 1 से झूठ बोल रहे हैं ये लोग. तो प्रॉब्लम इज नॉट डीएनए टेस्टिंग. वो मैंने डेमोन्स्ट्रेट किया अपनी किताब में, कोट किया मैंने कि टेस्ट करने से पहले ही आपको रिजल्ट मालूम चल गया. So likewise, and there are examples where you can actually see that there have been fudging in the DNA. I will have to rush very quickly because I'm told I don't have time. If this man was Subhash Bose, there will be 3-4 things. I'm sorry, this is the most important part, but I don't have time because we have to look it. If this man was Subhash Chandra Bose, and if he was here in India from 55 to 85 roughly, in between he would go out, just leave that thing on the side. It is impossible that the government did not. I don't think so. The way the intelligence function in our country, intelligence bureau, impossible. You would know. Maybe 1 year, 2 year, 3 year. Answer is yes. 2, there must have been a very big reason for him not to come out. Has it been a very big? Again, answer is yes. I'm still trying to comprehend, but it seems to be very big. 3, if this man was actually Subhash Bose, he was not Lalu Prasad Yadav obviously, but he would not be sitting quiet. He would do something or the other. And this is the most amazing bit. Again, it's yes. The kind of starting claims that he's making, that I cannot. He said that he sought asylum from the Russians, which he got. He blamed the Americans for the defeat of the INA. He said that the India's national interests were compromised by the Indian leadership. They compromised with the British in 1947, and they placed India in such a position that our interests were made subservient to the British and American interests. And he feared, this man, that if I don't do anything, there will come a time in this Cold War, which is getting reflected in different countries as an armed conflict, in Korea, probably to other places, it would come to India. So to avoid that thing, and probably to help the Russians who had saved his life, and to pay back the Americans who had helped defeat the INA, he claimed that he became part of the Russian covert operations. Whatever, there are 2 things which happen in front of you, are things which do not happen. Even as we sit today, there are raw IB intelligence military working in Delhi. Not a word comes out in media. Doesn't mean that it's not happening. Every single day, the IB director has got 60,000 reports on his table. So you think that these things are not happening. So many things happen behind the screen. So he said I was active, he was working. So then he said he was active, and you can call it circumstance and so on and so forth. He said he was in China in 49, which is backed by other evidence. Like his own brother making a statement that my brother is alive, he's in China in 1945. Then he's saying I am part of some military operations in different parts of the world, because of which I am in such a tight position that if I were to divulge my identity to come out, these world powers will seek my handover. And my poor people will be caught in the crossfire. I don't want people to suffer because of me. They will be sanctioned on our country. In fact, what he said here was, I'm sorry I don't have time to explain the data, but he said, do not disclose my location here. India will suffer. These foreign powers will come looking for me here. People would not want this thing to happen. So people will suffer because of me. Let me be here, I'm working for the country. So invariably, this is how, I don't have time to explain. This is one of the words. He said, you cannot comprehend the kind of things I'm doing. You cannot comprehend what kind of person I was and what I have become. The kind of powers which have come to me in past 30 years, 20 years, so on and so forth. He makes astounding claims, one after another. He makes these kind of claims. I do not know what to make of it, but rumors, government of India, whoever this man was, from the time Charan Singh became the chief minister of the state, they were aware of him. So this is my clear-cut stand. Whoever this man was, my government knows and they have the records. That is the reason why Mr. Modi, as far as I understand, is not releasing the files. If the story was as simple as that he was killed in Russia and if you release the file, Nehru will get the blame, he would have done so by now. He is caught in a problem because there are files which are very complicated, that he was here, the government was aware, Mr. Vajpayee was aware, and yet because of these complications, the things were not brought out, so on and so forth. So there are many issues. For example, there are certain things which are from history which are now coming to us, now we're seeing them in new light. Mujibur Rahman making a statement in 1972, the birth of Bangladesh is the proof that Netaji is alive. The beat constable in Basti is telling me that Mrs. Gandhi came to meet him in 70. Somebody is telling me the Manek Shaw came to see this man. This man making astounding claims that me and Manek Shaw and others, we used to decide the war strategy. It is because of me that the governor house was bombed in Dhaka. He made statements regarding Bangladesh war much before the war happened. People said in that part of the world that whatever we used to listen on radio regarding Bangladesh war, Bhagwanji would tell us 2 days before that. And so many things are there. And the most, I am a person, last thing, I'll wrap up 5 minutes. I am not somebody like you, a scientific temperament. Just because somebody looks like Netaji, he can't be Netaji. This photograph is there on the internet. This is being discussed by at least our grandparents. Rumors spread that Netaji had come when Panditji had died. So this man was there. But this man is not Subhash Bose. He looks like him for one problem, that he is somebody else, and that somebody else appeared before the last commission to say, my name is Veera Dhammawara, I'm a Buddhist monk, this is my photograph. Dhammawara looks like Netaji a little bit, but then he's a short man like me. Subhash Bose was 5'10", in those 5'9", 5'10", so he's not him. So this man was alive until 90-something. He lived to a very long age. He died in America, so you can make out he's the same man. So this photograph is not his. So whenever I look at photograph, I see differently. Bhagwanji made most astounding claims about, that one day he talked about that I am active in different parts of the world in theaters. He made some most astounding claim about the war in Vietnam. I don't have time, but he said certain things which were not in public domain. Babaji cannot know something which is not known to Pentagon. In 65, you're saying, I have told Ho Chi Minh that you distribute finest form of cocaine and opium in South Vietnamese side where the American forces are. It was only until at late 60s that the Pentagon came to know that the American forces are taking drugs. By 71, it was clear 10% of soldiers are on drugs. How does a Baba know in 1965 that the American soldiers are on drugs? And he's making claim that America can never win this war, but they're looking for me everywhere, but they will not find the coast, so on and so forth. And he's saying when Americans and Vietnamese are discussing truce talks in Paris, I'm there. The ghost, the shadow of the ghost is there. We look for pictures in the archive from the agencies in America. This photograph is from America. There is a peace talk. For some reason, the Americans and Vietnamese declared truce, ceasefire in Vietnam on Subhash Bose's birthday. I'm not counting it as it can be a coincidence. 23rd January 1973 is the official date when they announced we will declare ceasefire. I do not know why they would spot on that date. But this is, for me, that's not an evidence. But this is a point where I'm very intrigued. I am not concluding anything. But when we look into the pictures taken during the Paris peace talk, Bhagwanji talked a lot about Paris. He loved that city. I can explain how he went there, but that's not the issue. But when we see, he said Ho Chi Minh's pride of 9 generals and a shadow behind them. There are a lot of things into it. He would explain why he did that, a lot of things he did not like communist. It's very detailed thing, so we will discuss some other time. But we see roughly 8 or 9 people, they were top level generals sitting there. I can go into a lot of details about it. But we see a man there who has a little bit of similar structure and height to Subhash Chandra Bose. We take a close-up, he seems to have put on some weight, which was the case with Bhagwanji. Bhagwanji, by 1969, he did not have too many wrinkles on his face, but he was balding. Hair was all white, but he had put on some weight. But he did not have a face with wrinkles. So, but this man, we look at from different sides and different directions. He is somebody who has some resemblance with Subhash Bose. I do not know, because I wrote to the government of Vietnam asking them, who is this man? Can you identify? They told me, you write to our different department. That department never replied to me. And then there are other claims coming from independent sources about Vietnam story, even from people who have no interest in Subhash Chandra Bose. Journalists are saying we were told by the government of Vietnam that there are reports about Subhash Bose in our country, so on and so forth. These things are there. So this man, wherever you look, whichever side, he has some resemblance with our man. There's a thing called facial mapping in London, England. It's basically an admissible evidence. So we did run these pictures through a facial mapping expert. So he's saying that from whatever I can make out, there is a resemblance. So resemblance doesn't mean Subhash Bose. But then I'm thinking in the context of what Bhagwan ji said regarding Vietnam and why he couldn't come out, this makes a lot of sense. So I leave you with this last picture. This is the only picture I've got because this is the closest I could get as a close-up. So we need to find who this man was. There is a very good chance, I don't know how 100%, I'm not sure, 80%, 50%, there is a possibility because Bhagwan ji did talk about something like this. There's a possibility, if we can figure out that this man is somebody else, then this particular line is killed. Otherwise, I think this has to be found out who this man is. Because among these people, of all these people, this person's granddaughter is a Miss Vietnam. We will try to reach her very soon. They're all dead. The foreign minister, one of them was a lady who eventually became a vice president of Vietnam. My friends met her recently in Vietnam, and the moment they take Subhash Bose's name, she suddenly becomes stiff. Meeting over. But she said he was a great man. So there's something about Vietnam and Subhash Chandra Bose. And even if this is true, forget what other issues. Even this angle is true. Impossible for this man to come out. Do not disclose my location. It is not India's national. People ask me, was this man a coward? No, he was not a coward. Whoever this man was. He would have eaten people alive if he were to out. But these problems were there. But these problems were then. These problems are not today. Whatever I know, take my word for it, there are records with Government of India. Help me in raising the momentum. I do not want people to support me on anything. You take it as an interesting story like in Hollywood thriller. It may be right or wrong. Just support me on one point agenda. Declassify all Subhash Chandra Bose files, especially from the intelligence agencies. Without that, there will be nothing. I want the raw files. I want the IB files. And after you have released your files, go and talk to the Russians at the highest level. Talk to the Russians. Because as far as I understand, if this man was Subhash Bose, Russians knew that he was sitting here. Because he was their buddy. So I am on Facebook, on Twitter, please be active. Do nothing, I want your support, nothing. No Bhagwan ji, no Faizabad, forget about everything. I want your support only on one thing. Support the demand for declassification, which is in favor of transparency, which is in favor of democracy. In principle, even people in Congress party are not against it. I am not afraid of what Dr. Swamy is saying. Dr. Swamy can go on telling the world he was killed in Russia. Take it from me, there will be no proof. There is sufficient data available that Russian theory is probably not true. So that's how it is. Thank you very much for your time. God bless all of you.
Thank you, Mr. Anuj Dhar, for this fascinating discussion. Now I would like to request Professor Jaydeep Datta to present a token of appreciation to Mr. Anuj Dhar.